a slow crawl, Shawshank Redemption style to the rain. You're just like waiting for good weather to come.
Yeah.
Football ends slowly, and you're just get me out of this. Get me to April. Get me to May. This time of year, you don't even really want it to go fast, but it goes fast. And you look up, and now we have 4 games of Pac-12 football left, and then it's never going to exist again.
Oh, 5, because you got the Pac-12 title game.
Touche. 5 games of Pac-12 football left. And
Oregon State, Washington, Pac-12 title game in Vegas.
And it's all gone, man.
Yeah.
We're never going to see it again.
Yep. Thanks for not pushing back on that statement.
I won't say anything. You guys are good. You're going to blow out Colorado this weekend.
We'll see.
Hey, take out the Huskies. I'm cool with that. I'll be rooting for you guys in a week. You got my full support next Saturday and this Saturday too. Don't let Dion.
We play Stanford next Saturday.
Oh, that's right. Touche. Yeah. 2 Saturdays.
2 Saturdays. Yeah.
You have my full support.
Thank you.
And don't let Dion off the mat. We got him pinned down right now. The Pac-12 has embarrassed him, and don't let him off the mat.
Have they embarrassed him?
I think so. It's been pretty bad.
I don't think
they blew a
embarrassed
29-point lead to Stanford.
That was a bad loss.
They were up 29-0.
I know.
At the half.
I know.
They lost.
That's a bad loss.
That happened.
I don't know if they embarrassed him.
Their only Pac-12 win is Arizona State, a game that they probably should have lost. I think they trailed most of that game.
They were close against UCLA.
Kind of, yeah.
It was 7-6 at halftime.
Okay, that's fair. Valid argument.
I'm just,
They were down big against USC.
They won 1 game last year.
Yeah. They've won 4 this year. It's a good turnaround.
They might win 5 this year.
But I'm still rooting against them, and I hope your team embarrasses them this weekend.
I pulled Dion audio last night as I watched a little bit of the hockey, and then the hockey got bad. And so, you know what I did is turned off the second screen. I had the Wemby experience.
The Slender Man experience.
Oh, yeah. Did you watch Wemby?
I was not watching at the time, but I had a buddy who lives in Phoenix who texted and said, whatever you're doing right now, grab your phone and live bet the Phoenix Suns.
Oh,
and
no.
So I said, okay. I grabbed my phone. I opened up DraftKings, and it was like plus 300. They were down by 20 in the second quarter.
Oh, they were down 24 in the third quarter. They were getting smoked.
Put a small unit on the Phoenix Suns to come back, and then that made me not watch, but follow the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And they did not win that bet.
Well, for a minute, he was right. It's him, right?
Tied it up.
Yes.
I'm assuming.
Tommy's down there in Arizona.
Oh, Tommy. I know Tommy. Tommy's a stick.
He's a stick, and he wanted to gamble on the Phoenix Suns last night, and I thought, okay, let's do this together.
He ended up kind of being right, but the funny thing is Phoenix tied it at 116. The final score was 132 to 121. Wemby just blew him the hell out. He scored 10 of the next 12 points, and, it became the foul game.
This is now a little terrifying.
It's absolutely terrifying.
It took him 5 games to figure it out.
He had 38 and 10 last night.
Dude, and I know
he was a plus 21 in 34 minutes.
I know most people don't care about this Spurs team. We never care about the Spurs ever, even when they're really good. It's just like, whatever.
Here we go again.
He's got a nice little supporting cast around him.
Ooh.
Yep. Like it makes me think, had we just landed that one stupid little ping pong ball.
That's definitely not going to haunt us for 20 years.
We could have
definitely won't be something we bring up all the time when we watch Wemby dominate the NBA because he's a freak.
Dame, Jeremy Grant, Victor Wembanyama.
Well, not only is he a freak.
Shaden Sharp. Oh, my God.
But he's really basketball smart.
No, he knows the game. He knows. He's a real one.
It's scary.
Yeah.
He has people will post highlights of his that are just like how he will tip a rebound to and arm over the head of somebody else, tip it to somebody else, and they'll make it.
He stole an alley-oop from Jeremy Sohan in the first game of the season.
He snatched it out of the air.
Vassell lobbed it to him. Sohan comes up, and Victor just comes from behind him and grabs the ball and dunks it. I was like, what the hell?
I did chuckle when I saw the opening tip, though, in that game yesterday.
The quick tip?
Nurkic definitely broke the rules, but if you don't do that, there is no way to ever win a tip against that guy.
I don't think NBA refs can throw it high enough to get it to come back down before
Nurkic's cheating if you throw it too high because he'll get it, and that's not fair.
He basically grabbed it off with the hand of the official. Just tapped it back to his teammates.
Do me a favor here, Dirt. Because I don't know if you saw it, and I don't know if you know about it. Did you see any of the preseason Wemby stuff?
No, I did not.
Okay, I didn't think you had.
No.
Google right now, Steph Curry, Victor Wembanyama jump ball.
Oh, we had one of those.
They played the Spurs, and Steph wanted to jump. He wanted to be the jump ball guy.
Yeah.
And if you watch right before they toss it, Steph's like anchoring his body. He's making all these movements. Like he thinks he's really going to jump with Wemby.
All right, I got it here.
And the ball goes up and it's like Steph's not remotely close to it at all.
Is this the opening tip of the game?
Yeah,
they let him do the opening
tip.
He
wanted it. He asked Kerr if he could do the opening tip against Wemby.
Oh, this is fantastic.
Oh, it was so good.
All right, here we go.
Look at how serious he's taking it. He's laughing. He's like, oh, I'm going to get this.
Victor just like, boop.
I don't even think he jumps.
I don't think he did. He just slowly stands up and then tips the ball back to his teammates.
Oh, it's
yeah, definitely not going to haunt us for 20 years. We're definitely not going to think about that on a pretty regular basis, that we were only one ping pong ball away from getting that guy.
It was just crazy to watch. Like, there's these rebounds or putback dunks. He just gets them, and everybody around him looks around like, what are we supposed to do here?
There's nothing you can do.
Like Kevin Durant,
nothing.
He drove on KD. And by the way, you know that picture they used in the Giannis finals of when he was drafted versus what he looked like and how much different he was?
Skinny Giannis and filled out Giannis.
That's basically what it looks like when Kevin Durant is standing next to Victor Wembanyama, which is terrifying. He drove on Kevin Durant. He dribbled the ball as a 7'4", 8.5-foot wingspan dude. He dribbled the ball to the free throw line, pulled up for a jumper, and Kevin Durant, fully jumping and extending, could only hit his elbow.
That's a 7-foot. Like, Kevin Durant, prior to this, is one of the freakiest athletes of all time.
Easily.
To be his height, his athleticism, like the ability to shoot, to basically be a 7-footer doing that, that's something that has rarely ever been seen in the history of the NBA. And Victor Wembanyama makes him look like a shooting guard. There was a picture of them standing next to each other during a free throw.
Yeah.
And it's just like, are you like, that guy's 7 feet tall. Are you kidding me? I mean, I hate to be that person, but the only thing that will ever get in Wembanyama's way is health.
For sure.
If he stays healthy, there's nothing that can stop him.
So I did think of our good friend Gundy last night, Eric Gunderson. So I'm trying to find these tweets or this. We've been texting a lot this season. So this is how in on Wemby he is. Like, everybody's in on Wemby, right? Wemby's amazing. Gunderson took it a step further. He gambled. Okay, I'm going to name everything he gambled on this year.
Got a lot of Wemby bets.
And right now, I'm not going to lie, there is a little sliver of me that watched that game last night and went, he might hit on a lot of these.
He might have a shot at this.
Spurs over 29.5, even money.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it. Spurs 35+ wins at plus 285. Spurs 40 wins or more at plus 750.
I mean, you get the odds there. I'm not opposed to it.
Spurs to make the playoffs plus 900.
Is that the top 8 or the play-in?
Yeah, how do you count
the
that?
Top 10.
No, you have to get past the play-in to be in the playoffs.
Okay, so you win the play-in.
The play-in stats.
You got to win a play-in game.
Play-in stats don't register for playoff numbers or regular
season. So you got to
season.
be in the 8-team
Yes.
bracket. Okay.
Wemby for Defensive Player of the Year, 15-1. Pop for Coach of the Year, 22-1. And Wemby for MVP, 90-1. He gambled on all of those, and last night I went, I'm so jealous of that man.
I mean, all I think about when I watch him play basketball is honestly like there should be like an opposite of a roller coaster in the NBA. We need a height restriction. Like, this is just too much.
Oh, he's cheating.
We can't have this. This is unfair. He's 7'7". Like, just stop. Get him out of here. Send him back to Europe. This is stupid. Nobody can compete with this.
Look at this. Look at him talking to his assistant coaches right here. Like his little assistant coach. Hey, Victor, be better.
You got to shout it out into the atmosphere, man. His head's going to hit the roof of the building.
We should look up. They're playing the Spurs pretty soon here. I think this is the trip they're playing them. I got to go to this game.
Let's see here.
I think it's a weeknight, which is unfortunate, but I'm willing to be dead tired the next show. I mean, I'll coffee the hell up, but
they don't play Portland for a while.
Maybe I had that wrong.
No, it's right after Christmas. They got back-to-backs December 28th and 29th.
Buddy, guess who is off work?
Let's go see Victor the week after Christmas.
Dude, let's go see Victor. Yeah. Are you still working?
I'm not opposed to
Me and Dirt are off.
Well,
I don't know what you're doing.
I don't know what I'm doing either, but the pilots are off. We're not doing the Schwab this year, so I'm in. Let's go.
Let's go see Victor.
You'll get drunk and watch Victor play basketball.
I'll be honest with you. I don't want to do the media thing. I want to enjoy it. I want to be kind of high and at the game and have a beer and watch this dude just.
Oh, it was fun being there.
Heckle the hell out of him.
This is unfair.
Cheater!
Cheater. Cheater. Cheater.
I mean, there is an aspect of that, though, isn't it?
I've got to think.
Come on.
I didn't get to see Wilt play. That was before me, unfortunately. I got to think this is how people felt about when Wilt came in.
He's like 8 inches taller than Kevin Durant. It's unbelievable.
Have you seen him? He's like had his heels on the top of the arc at the free throw, so the jump circle around the free throw line.
Yeah.
I've seen him. He'll have his heels like on that.
Yeah.
And he can still block somebody shooting a 3-pointer. He's like blocked like 4 3-point attempts.
Second youngest player in history with 35 and 10 in a game. You know who the other person was Kevin Durant. So like, what if I told you got a maybe more athletic, taller, more lanky version of Kevin Durant?
Did you see the spin reverse layup he had? Like he was on the left block.
Oh, yeah.
He spun, took one step, and threw it on the other side of the rim.
He has not played a game that I have not watched. I've watched I have League Pass. I'm watching every Victor game I can.
I watched chunks of these last 2 games against the Spurs, and I saw chunks of his opening game. ESPN had his opening game.
Yeah.
And
he really looks like swag. You'd be able to tell us this more than anybody else. He really looks like super mobile, athletic Kareem. Does he not?
He's certainly got that vibe to him. You think he'd call up Kareem and learn how to? I'd love to see him. The sky hook. You want to talk about the most indefensible shot?
He's probably going to do it from the 3-point line.
He probably could.
He really could.
Even from half court over his head, it's going to go in.
We were one ball away.
Yeah,
that
one ball away.
Would be so awesome if he started reinventing the sky hook.
Look, I know Jordan won 6, and I don't know how many this kid's going to win. I feel like this is going to easily be the biggest heartbreak for us.
Yeah. No, we're definitely not going to bring that up in 15 years when this guy's won 5 NBA championships in a row.
They're going to win like 5 again, aren't they?
They're
going to do it again. Pop's going to be 88.
It's
He's going to win his
Spurs. Of all the teams to get
14th
him,
title.
the freaking Spurs got him.
The fix was in, man.
It definitely was.
French kid.
Yeah, really. Boris Diaw. We're not buying it.
Tony Parker. Oh, you got the big international prospect again, huh? What a coincidence.
He grew up a San Antonio Spurs fan. Victor, where do you want to go? Shout out to the old.
All right, well, this is kind of depressing, but also really fun to watch.
It is very entertaining, and when he's on national TV, it'll get my eyeballs the rest of the year.
Let's get it going. Football Friday here. We start with a little bit of local news and a local taste. Dirt and Sprague, good to be with you on this Friday. We're back with more on 1080 The Fan.
All eyes on Scoot.
Long rebound grabbed by Sharp, bounces in.
hallelujah, it's Friday, 'cause I've been working all week.
This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
on 1080 The Fan.
All right, welcome back in. Dirt and Sprague with you on this Football Friday. Boy, it's a nice weekend of college football, NFL. We're kind of spoiled this weekend, huh?
It's a really good weekend, man. I can't wait. It's a great Sunday. So you don't always get that. There's been a handful of Sundays this year where I'm like, And then you look at this one, and it's like, all right, let's go. Good games all day, starting at 6:30 all the way till Sunday night.
I want to get to a local story I saw yesterday afternoon, but I want to ask both of you gents. Swigard, you seem more lively today. I had a text from a friend that said, you seemed depressed yesterday. Said, watch on the live stream. Swag seemed like he hated you guys for the entire show. And I said, well, I'll talk to him about that.
I'm done with 2 days of having to go to the dentist, so they've done all the sand blasting and cleaning.
The mouth feels better.
Yeah, it's a little raw in certain spots.
Shorty, what that mouth do?
So I still have the Novocaine wore off on the right side. I had the right side worked on yesterday. My left side of my tongue still is feeling numb.
That's awesome.
So the doctor, I'm like, what'd you give me an extra dose? What are you doing?
Wish I could Novocaine my knee when I go running.
Yeah,
I go run like 20 miles.
yeah.
Like,
Is that possible?
Yeah, BioFreeze kind of numbs things. I want to ask you guys a quick question, football question. Non-local schools here. Who is more likely to win this weekend? Who would you, Dirt, you like to put these up on Thursdays for Football Friday of what's the bet you would place if you could place the bet?
Yeah, what upset or what's your favorite bet?
Cowboys beating the Eagles in Philadelphia or LSU beating Alabama in Alabama?
I would have to go LSU. I have such little faith in the Dallas Cowboys.
Sometimes you look like you're not sure if you believe what you're saying.
Well, I'm thinking this one through.
Okay.
Like I don't. To me, Dallas is one of the most fraudulent sports franchises that has ever existed. And when they go on the road,
I do have 5 championships.
Yeah, half a century ago. Congratulations. Thanks for winning in the 70s when Swag was like 37 years old.
They got 3 in the 90s.
Yeah, get out of here.
They got more in the 90s in the 70s.
I'm 34 years old. That was 30 years ago, okay? Anybody under the age of 30 has no recollection at all of the Dallas Cowboys winning anything.
The World Series, the Cowboys are now the Dallas area pro franchise that has the longest championship.
That's right.
Route.
Yes. The Stars and the Mavs
Stars won one in the late 90s.
Rangers
The Mavs won one, 15 years ago,
Yeah.
and now the Rangers. I think when they go into these games, they are exposed, and you get to see what it's like when they play a good team. Dallas is great at beating up on bad teams. They do it all the time. They did it earlier this year, and everybody said, oh, here come the Cowboys. They beat Zach Wilson. Oh, here we go. And then they played the 49ers on the road, and it was 42-10. They just smoked the Rams. I gambled on them last weekend. They crush bad teams. This is what the Cowboys do. And then they go into Philadelphia. Dak's going to throw 3 picks. He's going to look shaky. Philly's going to run the football, write it down, and the Eagles will win this game. I don't think LSU's going to beat Alabama, but if you ask me what's more likely, Jaden Daniels going in there. He beat him last year. I could see it happening again this year.
Swag, do you concur?
Yeah, I think so. The big question for Dallas is, are they getting Tyron Smith back? They're going to need their best offensive lineman to slow down the Eagles' pass rush. They did okay against the Rams, well enough, but if they don't have their top offensive lineman, the Eagles will figure out how to exploit that on the offensive line, and they'll be in Dak's business all day.
You remember the story we shared a couple days ago of Ian Furness on the Apple Cup?
Yes.
I missed, I guess, the Twitter fodder of Oregon State stuff, but Dashel put in the OregonLive.com. He put an article up yesterday saying he's talked with Barnes and people around the university that have not dismissed the idea of Ducks Beavs playing in 2024, that they're kind of talking about this right now. And even though there was some people, I guess, on Twitter saying this wasn't going to happen because we had the Big Ten schedule released yesterday.
Oregon's whole schedule is out, and they're playing 13 games.
Oh, well, they get the extra game because of Hawaii, but the stipulation would be you'd buy one of the opponents out. So you got Boise State, Texas Tech, Hawaii, and Idaho.
Yeah.
I would imagine you'd keep Idaho because you need a cupcake game. Hawaii might be that. And then it's down to Boise State or Tech, right? If you were to get out of that and put Oregon State in one of those places, it would have to be one of those two schools. But I thought encouraging nonetheless, Nick Daschel reporting that the Civil War might roll on in 2024. Where it would be played, my stance on this is, again, Ben, I think if this game continues, it's going to be like an 80-20 thing where it's mostly Eugene. We don't have a Seattle Lumen Field thing. But, yeah, I mean, he reported that they might still have the game next year.
I don't really know how to feel about any of this stuff anymore. I feel like a lot of reporting is done to appease fans to a certain extent of like, no, trust us, this will be okay. Like, this whole schedule is out. It's into November now. And if you would have bought out an opponent, like, you've had months to figure this out. The conference collapsed in August before college football even began. So you've had months to try and work this through and to try and buy out an opponent. Oregon's not going to get rid of the Hawaii game next year because I think teams actually enjoy, like somebody tweeted me yesterday, the reason Oregon's playing 13 games is you get the bonus game when you go to Hawaii.
Going to Hawaii, and that's a great thing to bring boosters.
Yeah, they're not getting rid of that. That's not the game you
Coaches love it. They love having an extra game to prepare their guys. They love being able to go recruiting over there. Exactly.
Summer.
So you're not getting rid of that game. So I guess maybe the Idaho game.
I think it'd be Boise State.
Or Boise State, but
don't you want Idaho? You need a cupcake game.
Sure, I don't want either of those games.
12-team playoff next year. Do you really need cupcakes?
I have a hard time seeing this happening as of this point. I just, like, their schedule's out. I have a hard time then seeing them retracting that and saying, oh, just kidding, fans who we sent this out for. By the way, they're actively trying to sell season tickets for next year.
Yeah.
And the Idaho game and the Boise State game are home games. The reporting on the Civil War is that if they were to play next year, it's a non-starter if it's anywhere but Corvallis because the game is...
It's technically their turn.
Yeah. It's supposed to be in Corvallis next year. Yeah. So you're then taking away a home game. Oregon has 8 home games on their schedule next year. And you're asking them to buy out an opponent and then add a game that's going to be more difficult than the game that's on their schedule, not to mention the fact losing a home game and adding a road game. I don't know. I would love to see the game continue. I've been a proponent of that forever. I understand why Beaver fans are emotional about it, but I don't really think it's your call, and it's definitely in your best interest to keep playing the game, especially when it's in Corvallis, because it's going to be a part of whatever TV network deal you get with the conference that you're playing in. But with the schedule already out and season tickets going to start rolling out, like I don't know. I have a hard time seeing that happening in that short of time.
Which one of these 4 home games you think is most enticing to Oregon? Because we got the schedule and we got the dates now. So we at least know where they're playing, when they're playing. The Big Ten schedule for Oregon. I'm going to throw these 4 road games out. So if you're a Duck fan, you're saving your money up. You're like, I'm going to go on one road game next year. What road game are you going to? At UCLA, at Purdue, at Michigan, or at Wisconsin?
You didn't include Hawaii in that. You don't want to go to Hawaii in August?
I said Big Ten.
I know, but still. Hey,
I've been to Hawaii in August. It's pretty hot.
It's
warm.
It's pretty hot.
It's a delightful trip, though. It's Hawaii.
I had a great trip. I wouldn't go to Oahu. I wouldn't want to go back. I'd want to go to a different island, but
slightly different weathers between some of those trips. Wisconsin and Ann Arbor in November, and Hawaii in August.
What are you doing, Duck fan?
I think Michigan has to be the game. I know you've already played there, but Michigan has to be the game.
Why did you say that like that?
Duck boy.
Like you were going to fight him. Like, what are you doing, Duck fan?
As a non-Duck fan, if I was going to take in...
Did you pick up on that?
I picked up on that. I'm taking the high road here. I could make a joke about your schedule next year, but I'm taking the high road here.
Puget Sound sick?
No, just what road game are you going to go to next year?
Washington State.
That's a home game. You played them in Pullman.
It's the best. It's the best of 9.
A home and home.
And home and home. And home. It's like the 1914 World Series. Best of 9. First one to 5 wins the Pac-2.
They're going to end up with such a bad schedule. I'm like, San Diego State's back. Yeah.
I would think, boy, Wisconsin in the middle of November might be kind of fun at Camp Randall.
I think that I'd see a Purdue or Wisconsin for me. I know Michigan. I get it.
You went there.
Harbaugh's going to leave.
They played at Purdue, too. They played at Purdue in 2006, 7. They had a home and home with Purdue.
Don't remember that game at all. You go to the Rose Bowl. I threw the Rose Bowl at you.
See, that's a trip you've already done, though. Like, that's been a regular trip for you.
I mean, sometimes the best vacations are the vacations you keep taking.
I think the idea is you get to see new stadiums and experiences that, like, the Michigan game was a long time. I was a freshman in college when they played at Michigan. So it's been a long time. And Oregon, I believe, has been to Camp Randall. I can't remember what year it was, but I feel like they played at Wisconsin one year. A long, long time ago.
Okay.
But I still think because of where the programs are at, like if Michigan ends up getting hammered here and Harbaugh's gone and they're under sanctions and all that and Michigan turns out to suck next year, I'll change my answer.
No.
But until that happens, like, dude, that has a chance to be a top 5 game. Like, imagine Oregon playing. I think this is the weekend that it would happen. Isn't the game the first weekend of November?
November 2nd.
November.
Yeah.
This is the weekend. Imagine if you had
now.
Oregon and Michigan playing this weekend in Ann Arbor. How big of a game that would be.
But see, in my game, we are trying to project, and I'm going under the stipulations as I clear my throat. I'm going under the belief that he is gone, and that program is definitely going to get sanctioned for a year at least.
Could be. You're giving a lot of credit to the NCAA there.
Yeah, I probably am.
North Carolina.
I think the
too.
Big Ten's going to
Fake
be
academic program
forced to do something by the other coaches. I think they are
Bill
going
Self,
hard
no
on
punishment.
old Tony
Waiting on line
Petitti
3
there.
You're not wrong.
They don't do anything.
I don't know, man. Camp Randall's awesome.
You want to go jump around?
I want to jump around in the snow.
Purdue just doesn't seem very interesting, does it?
I'd be down for a Purdue trip, just not like that's not bucket list year 1. Like that's in like year 5. I've seen Penn State, been back to Columbus. I've done the Ann Arbor thing.
What's your top 2 when the Ducks are officially a Big Ten team?
Penn State's number 1. Whiteout game at Penn State's number 1.
We cannot allow him to go. Swag, I'm not kidding. You need to write an email now. You cannot allow him to go to Penn State.
Why not?
What happened when you went to a Panthers game and got heckled by a Florida State fan? What happened?
Shouldn't have been chirping. That's not on me. Don't be chirping. How'd that
Drunk
game turn
Dirt
out?
came out and said a lot of things. Can you imagine what Drunk Dirt says at a Penn State-Oregon game if his Ducks are down 20?
People don't forget.
You think by the time they go to Penn State, how many years that he'll tone it down a little bit, being a dad and setting the example?
I think it's going to get worse. He'll be more stressed.
Well, that's the only that's the follow-up question. Is my son with me? If he's with me, then I'll tone it down. If he's not with me, there's no tone down happening. Penn State's number 1 on my list. And then it's probably Michigan number 2. Oregon just played in Columbus a couple of years ago. I obviously wasn't at the game.
Not Rutgers, huh?
Not quite Rutgers, not quite Maryland. I'm going to put those near the bottom of the list. Or Champaign, Illinois. That's down the bottom of the list. The
Could
other
be
fun
Clemson
one,
soon.
Could be Clemson. The other fun one for me is the family ties in Nebraska. Like having Nebraska games on a somewhat regular basis is going to be really cool.
I was wearing a Nebraska t-shirt with dirt. We went back to the tailgate and then walked back for the kickoff. I was wearing a Nebraska shirt. Dirt was wearing his Oregon gear. We were minding our own business, and random tailgaters started heckling both of us.
Yeah.
Both. And I just was like, I'm wearing red.
Hey.
What do you want?
Go Big Red.
Dirt took a lot of crap at that game. His family's diehard.
Yeah, that was a tough one. Helfrich kept going for 2. The scars have not healed from that game yet.
Oh, come on.
That was a tough one. I wanted to be braggadocious to family, and I could not be braggadocious to family.
Let's dive into the college football schedule a little bit here. We got some NFL to dive into as well. Loaded weekend in football, man. College and the pros. So let's get to it next. But first, Swag with the sports update.
This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on the Fan, Ducks and Beavers, both big favorites this weekend as the Pac-12 title field could shrink a bit. First up, number 6 Oregon hosting the Cal Bears, 2:30 kick from Autzen right here on the Fan. Our live pregame coverage will start at 10 a.m. from Eugene. Ducks currently 24.5 point favorites at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sportsbook. 16th ranked Oregon State trying to bounce back from their loss in the desert. They're on the road again this week at Colorado. Beavers 13.5 point favorites, but more Pac-12 after dark. It'll be a 7 p.m. kick on ESPN. Steelers spoiling the first NFL start of Will Levis for the Titans. They get another fourth quarter comeback. They beat Tennessee 20-16. Pittsburgh now 5-3 on the season, even though they have been outgained in 7 of their 8 games this year. Seahawks get a huge test Sunday morning in Baltimore. They'll face the Ravens in a meeting of division leaders. Kickoff 10 a.m. right here on the Fan. Pregame coverage at 8. Ravens currently 6-point favorites. And the Blazers are back home tonight looking for a third straight victory. They host the winless Memphis Grizzlies. 7 o'clock tip on Root Sports. Portland, though, a 2.5-point underdog as Scoot Henderson is out tonight due to an ankle injury suffered in Detroit. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swigart from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Watch and wager on every game at Spirit Mountain Casino with a sportsbook powered by BetMGM. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
Go deeper on the Trailblazers. The Rose Garden Report.
AutoZone. What makes AutoZone America's #1 battery destination? Because they offer free battery testing and charging and reliable replacement batteries. And they've always got your battery solution. Get in the zone. AutoZone.
This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
on 1080 The Fan.
Sitting watching highlights of Wemby still. Got Wemby envy. Suffering from it. It's chronic.
It's going to be there for a long time, my friend, long time.
It's like gout, just never goes away.
Just never
Go away.
It is an STD.
Yeah.
It's herpes. We have Wemby herpes.
Wemby envy.
Where do those show up at?
That S ain't going away, man.
Where do they show up at?
Not leaving you. You got warts all over.
That's too bad. From time to time, we get weekends that line up in college and the NFL, and we say, hey, man, there's a lot of good games on both levels. What will end up being more disappointing, or what will live up more to the hype for the games this weekend, college or the NFL?
I'm going to go college. I think we've reached that point in the season where crazy things are going to start happening, and it began a little bit last week with the Oklahoma loss. You had 2 weeks ago where you had some other near misses, Oklahoma being one of them. And I just think we're going into a weekend where Texas is a top 10 team. They have to play a Kansas State team who's playing really good football right now with a backup quarterback.
I'm kind of all over Kansas State this weekend.
Dude, they're playing. I mean, that line tells you all you need to know. They're in Austin, and it's a 3.5-point spread.
Yeah.
Like, that's basically a home field advantage.
It's a confident group, Dirt, that won the conference championship last year.
Dude, it totally is. I don't buy much into the Missouri-Georgia game, but if you want to, you have that game to lean on. We have Bedlam for the last time ever going on in Stillwater. Could you imagine what the atmosphere is going to be like at Oklahoma State for that game? By the way, Oklahoma State also still alive for the Big 12 title race. You have 5 teams right now, I believe, in the Big 12 that only have one conference loss. Kansas State, Texas, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State all only one conference loss. I don't know how much people put stock into the USC-Washington thing, but that's a fascinating game to keep an eye on. Like, I think there's chances for some chaos this weekend in college football. And the reality is, and I will always argue this, it just means more this time of year in that sport. It just does. Like, if Dallas makes me look like an idiot, and we play that clip from 2 segments ago in the Open on Monday because they win in Philly, it's like, all right. Does it really mean that much?
No, you're still.
Are we still buying Dallas to go to the Super Bowl? Like,
Yeah.
no, not really. But these games are these are elimination games in college
Well, yeah,
football.
there's desperation for certain teams in college football to know if they want to have still things to play for, they can't stumble anymore. You're only halfway through the NFL season. There's so much more.
Well, you're allowed leeway, too. Like,
Well, yeah.
Fans in the NFL, they'll live and die with a loss, but, like, ultimately, you look at it, you say, I can lose 5-6 games and be totally fine. We can lose 7 games and make a wild
10
card.
and 7 can get you a wild card spot.
I think 9 and 8 can get you a wild card spot, depending on how the season goes.
So, but I mean, you could get. There's all sorts of chances for wild craziness on college football this weekend.
I'm hoping this happens because I love chaos, but I'm going through the list of just the top 25 teams.
Mm-hmm.
I think Arizona could beat UCLA. That wouldn't shock anybody.
No.
LSU beat Bama last year, and I think they've got the better quarterback this year. Washington could absolutely beat USC. We can all see a scenario, though, where this is 55-53, and USC pulls an upset.
Yeah, last one with the ball wins.
I think I think Purdue is going to get absolutely annihilated. I think Michigan's going to try to win the game 88-0. I think that's the goal.
Those poor bastards.
I don't look past Iowa State potentially upsetting Kansas here. Like, you just keep going through them. Oklahoma State, as you mentioned, in Bedlam. Missouri, Georgia, we'll wait and see on that one. Notre Dame, Clemson, in Clemson. Clemson's desperate.
Wounded dog mentality.
A&M is only a 3-point dog at Ole Miss.
Ole Miss is not that good.
Circle that one. I think Kansas State's going to beat Texas. And I'm going to give you one more. Sneaky close, somewhat surprising. Rutgers hangs with Ohio State.
Ooh, is it in
It's in Jersey.
in Jersey?
It's Piscataway.
Piscataway, New Jersey. It's in Jersey.
I mean, they hung with Michigan in Ann Arbor. That was like a 14-7 or 10-7 game in the first half before Michigan blew them out.
And I know you're not there. Swag may not be there, but I'm sorry. I'm a wounded animal today. Watch those Buffaloes, baby. Watch those Buffaloes.
yeah, I'm not worried about that one.
That's okay.
I'm not worried about that one.
That's okay.
I think you guys will be okay.
Yeah, we'll see.
I do hope that we
How
get.
healthy is Shedeur Sanders?
He can't be that healthy.
He's not practicing all week. He's playing.
Dion had to have a sit down with his offensive line this week, two of whom he doesn't even know their names based on press conferences throughout the course of the year, and apologize for the comments that he made after the game.
He does a thing in the beginning of a press conference where there's kids that are highlighted for accolades and they're recognized basically. And he's going through the list, and the second kid, he goes, and I forget the kid's first name, but he basically is like, and Steve, I don't know how to say his last name. Just turned to his guy. I was like, I don't know how to say his last name. And he tells him, he says it. He's like, that's a good last name.
Yeah, he had a line earlier this year about a center that was returning to action after being injured, who was actually a local Colorado kid. He was from Colorado, one of the few holdovers from last year's team, and he had no clue what his name was. He was just starting a center.
Are you seeing highlights of Dion Pressers, or are you watching them?
I'm actually watching them.
You're having interesting takeaways. I'm watching him, and I'm like, he's making me like him more.
Is he?
He's just fun. He doesn't take. He answers every question respectfully.
He's an entertainer.
With a smile.
Sure, he's an entertainer for sure.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't think he knows half of his team's name though.
Oh well, I mean,
which is a pretty big deal
That's a
in
fair
coaching.
point.
Do you think he calls them
Kind of
by
important.
numbers, or he's got a nickname for
dogs
them?
and leaders. Hey, dog.
Yeah.
Hey, leader.
He was asking, like, he had no clue there was a video in their last, because they do their little YouTube things every week. And I was watching the last one. I was just curious because I watch him every now and then. And he was talking to the Hispanic kicker that they have.
Yeah.
He's like, had do his dance and stuff. He had no clue where he was from. He had no clue his background. He's like, so what country are you from? Like, dude, we're in week 9 of the college football season. You don't know half their names and where people are from.
Yeah, but I've seen a lot of Jonathan Pressers, and he has moments where I'm not sure how many names. How can you memorize all of those names?
Because you're the football coach. I think you should know the names of the players on your team.
Aren't there like 85
They don't know
players on a roster?
85 scholarship. Most
Dude,
of
that's
those
a
big
lot
programs
of
have
people, man.
100 players.
I'm sorry he didn't remember the last name of a kicker or something.
Sure.
Like that's a
Starting
lot of people.
offensive lineman, little different.
It's easier
I
for
think
Dan
Jonathan-
Lanning to have a Cam Lewis.
I think Jonathan Smith knows the name of his offensive lineman. I think he knows their names.
I think he does too.
I think Dan Lanning knows who Jackson Powers Johnson is.
Yes.
And Josh Connerly, I think he knows that name.
Well, Dion doesn't call them by their names. He calls them Louis. They're all Louis. And he
See,
just rolls around with them.
You're 100% spot on when coaches are talking about other players. Like that's when you hear that of like, dude, number 57 is a stud line. You get a lot of that. They don't know the players on other teams, but on your own team you should probably know it.
I want a little more on college football and a little sneak ahead to some NFL. We'll get to Oregon State's road game at Colorado. Washington, we're going to talk with Chris Fetters of dogman.com. What the hell has happened to the Huskies? Is it just simply Penix has been sick for 2 weeks and he's feeling better? Or is there something alarming that's being shown by somebody covering the team? Big game down in L.A. for them. Heisman moments, are they real? I'm going to challenge Dirt on that. Or Heisman moments a real thing for a player? So we'll talk a little bit about that. Dirt and Sprague back with more on 1080 The Fan.
This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
on 1080 The Fan.
Check in with the confidence meter. Oregon State at Colorado this weekend. We haven't talked much Oregon Cal. I got
thoughts, man. I'm not taking anybody lightly.
Might be the last time you guys play Cal for a while.
Yeah, I'm not going to, that's one of those in the loss of the Pac-12 that I'm like, I don't really care.
Not sentimental about any trips
About
to
Cal.
Strawberry Canyon.
I got nothing with Cal.
Oregon
Nothing.
Cal's had some good
I'm not saying they haven't had
tilts.
good games.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've beaten us from time to time.
They're not exciting to talk
there's
about.
nothing about
The
Cal that
ghost
gets me
of
excited.
Cameron Colvin has been put to
Cal and
rest.
Stanford could go to we could eradicate their football programs for all I care.
Well, you should definitely be happy Stanford's gone.
Dude, they don't have fans. Nobody cares. Nobody covers them in the Bay Area. Like the notion that they're Power 5 programs is almost insulting to a certain extent.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Like Oregon State and Washington State, there's sentimental value there. Those are tough places to go play. The fans are involved, like good atmospheres. That does not exist in the Bay Area with college football.
Have you seen these videos that have come out, the latest Michigan stuff?
I have.
I'm kind of, it's just amazing. Every minute there's a new video from a game in the last 3 years.
Which is why the whole notion of we got to let this thing run its course. Let's do the investigate. Like, what are we investigating? We know that they did it. We know that they blatantly cheated.
Yeah,
They bought the tickets.
Yeah.
They filmed the sidelines. Like, we have the evidence. What are we waiting
Well,
for?
Stallions is not there.
Sure.
And the other thing is we don't have a link, like, what do they call it? The smoking gun. You don't have a link directly tied to Harbaugh.
See, and I don't think you need one. I think either way, you could suspend him and make the argument for firing him. Because either he knew about it and he was okay with blatantly cheating.
Oh, he knew about it.
Or he didn't know about it. And how do you not know about something at that level in your program?
Yeah,
and
if he's a actual staff member, Michigan
yeah.
operations staff or coaching, whatever the hell he is, ultimately the head coach is responsible for all of the official actions of them.
I play a match game with my youngest. It's good for brain movement and activity where you like have the cards down. There's like 30 cards.
Sure.
And you flip them over and you try to get pairs, right? She's pretty good at it. And the other day we were playing and she flipped 2 after she had already flipped 1. And I saw it, but I acted like I didn't see it.
A little bit of a sneak at a second card she wanted there.
Well, no, she had flipped 1 and then she went down a few rows and she just kind of grabbed 2 and flipped them. And out of the corner of my eye, I felt and heard her go, oh. And she flipped both back and then flipped the one because it was a match.
Sure, that was the match.
And I didn't say anything. And she stopped and she went, I can't do this. And I said, what happened? And she went, I kind of already saw it. And I said, oh, well, so what should we do? And she goes, we'll take him out of the game. And I said, thank you. And I gave her a handshake. I shook her hand. I said, that's good. We don't cheat. We try. We don't need to cheat.
Sure. She has more morals than I did as a kid.
Well,
I cheated like crazy at every game I played.
did you really?
Hell yeah, I did. Playing Monopoly, I was sneaking hundreds left and right.
I guess my thing is, because Belichick is a known cheat,
Yes.
Harbaugh coached his ass off at San Diego, Stanford, the 49ers, and here he is at Michigan feeling so desperate that he has to implement a Connor Stalions, secrecy espionage plan.
Manifesto.
I just don't understand it. What I don't understand is why you're a good football coach. Line your guys up, study the opponent, and play. You want to find little loopholes the way other coaches do. Yeah, you steal some signs here or there. Okay. Having a porn star dress up undercover with sunglasses recording, I just don't understand. What do you get out of cheating? Do you really feel good when you win and you cheat? No. It's like being on a golf course. What'd you get there? I got a par. Everybody knows you got a bogey, Dave. Everybody knows you got a bogey.
Shots fired, Dave.
But like, does you feel crappy when you cheat?
It doesn't feel the same.
I don't know. I don't make millions. I don't have that same pressure. So it's easy for me to sit here and say, I just don't understand why such a good coach, why great coaches cheat. Just play the game. Have some damn integrity.
I think in this case, it was I'm going to lose my job. This is my alma mater. Things have not gone well. Like, dude, we don't have to go back that far to see a really toxic relationship between school, fan base, and head coach.
They cut his pay in half because he was
after
so
the
bad.
COVID year, he had to restructure his contract just to keep his job.
Yeah.
That's how bad it was. They had not beaten Ohio. Like, he couldn't beat Ohio State. They were blown out usually every time that they played him. They were terrible in the COVID year. I remember watching a game the COVID year where they were in Rutgers and luckier in hell to win. And this is like bad down Rutgers football. And you're like, oh my God, this is what's happened to Michigan? How did we get here? I was reading an article the other day about this, and it was pointing out in the last 3 years that Michigan has now turned things around. When you look, there's not anything else that's really changed. Like, when you go and look at where they were recruiting before this to where they're recruiting now, there's not a big difference. It's not like they, maybe the transfer portal is the one benefit. You say, okay, you brought a kid here or there in, but it's not like overnight you just, like Texas A&M, we had this a couple of years ago where they had the greatest recruiting class of all time because they paid for it, which, hey, you can do it, so whatever. I'm not going to knock you for it. Like, that one would make sense, right? Like, hey, we had this huge influx of talent, therefore we went from being bad to now we are good. That has clearly not been the case at A&M, but at least there would be something that you could point to. And this article about Michigan was like, there's none of that.
Yeah.
There's nothing there that all of a sudden overnight, it's like, dude, the first year they made the playoff, Cade McNamara was still their quarterback. And they all of a sudden turned into one of the most dominant teams in college football. Overnight.
Yeah.
And there's only one thing that changed, and it's this sign-stealing allegation. And it blows your mind when you think about it that way.
Well, humans are hypocritical all over the place every day, and I understand that. But, like, you're also talking about a coach that rests his laurels on Bible belief and, like, being good people and drink your milk. Like, his persona and his approach and his viewpoints of life are this structured, moral, hardworking man. And here he is cheating, like blatantly cheating in a way that we have not seen before. So
no.
I just don't get it. And maybe you lost your fastball. Maybe you realize just Ohio State's kicking my ass because I don't know what's happening.
There's nothing I can do about it.
Some coaches get left. I think Dabo is suffering from this, getting left behind a little bit by the evolution of the game because he's not willing to dabble in the portal and upgrade offense and all this stuff. Maybe that's what it was. And as you mentioned, the pressure of the university, the alma mater to win and win at a high level. But it's just amazing to me that some of the greatest coaches in this sport are just massive cheaters.
It's wild.
Belichick, he's the GOAT to everybody because he's got 6 rings. Absolutely cheated his ass off to beat that Rams team in 01.
Yes, he did.
And in the moment, I loved it because I hated the Rams. I was a Niner fan, and 9-11 and 01. So it's like, oh, the Patriots, let's have them win.
Yeah.
But absolutely cheated his ass off to be able to beat that team. That was the greatest show on turf. And here you got Harbaugh sending some low-level staffer making 50 G's a year to go infiltrate a sideline and videotape with sunglasses. The whole thing reeks, and it's disgusting to me because I love competition. I love it. I will compete all the time at my house, randomly. I do, events where I can compete. I love competing. It's just fun. But I'm not out at Hood to Coast sidearming a girl off the road because I want to have a better finish time than her.
Jumping in the car for half of your leg to speed it up a little bit.
It's just unbelievable. I had a girl pass me this year. She was flying. She must have been running at a 6:30 pace. You know what I did? Great job. Keep going.
Fastest kid alive.
Fastest woman ever. And, like, I wasn't mad, bitter. No, these aren't the same thing, Sprague. I understand it. When did we stop? I want to compete, and if I lose, I lose. But if I win, it feels awesome.
Yeah.
Beating Ohio State, getting to the playoff, I don't care what he says publicly. There's got to be a part of that brain that goes, this feels kind of gross.
It's like the difference between a rich kid who earned their money and a rich kid who inherited their money from their parents. Like, that would be cool. I understand being rich is always great and money can solve problems despite belief, but it wouldn't feel the same if you just inherited all of it.
Unless you became an absolute narcissist, which we have a lot of evidence that happens.
Money will do that to you, right? And when you inherit a lot of money, it'll do that to you. But I think there's an analogy there. I do believe that something's going to happen here. Michigan's not going to get banned. They're not going to get kicked out.
Not in season, though.
I think Jim Harbaugh is going to get suspended. I think the Big Ten.
For how long?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's the rest of the year. I genuinely would.
Wow, that would be massive.
I think these other coaches in 80s, we finally had a coach, I can't remember who it was, but one of the coaches finally went on the record with it and was like,
the Purdue coach.
That's who it was. Thank
That's who
you.
they play.
And he was like, dude, this is ridiculous. Like, we know that they've cheated. They blatantly cheated. We have the evidence that they cheated. We have tickets with the videos. Like, they filmed these dudes in the stands filming them. They have the smoking gun. It's there. We all know that they did it, and to allow them to just skate and well, let's let the NCAA figure this out. Like, stop it. This doesn't need to be due process. The NCAA takes a decade to act on some of this stuff, and I think this is the easy way out for Petitti. He does not want to take Michigan out of contention for the playoff because they don't want to lose that payout, and Michigan might be the best team in the Big Ten. So this is the easy solution of they've already played 4 games without him this year anyway, so what the hell? Suspend him for the rest of the season.
Final thing, and then we'll go to the second hour. What did you make of Joe Klatt's tweet yesterday? Basically throwing crap at the coaches, the reporting, and said this is ridiculous, let it play out. It was very interesting defense of Michigan, his Twitter account.
I don't get it. Tim Brando had a similar thing on social media yesterday too. I understand in most legal cases, the argument is innocent till guilty. Let's let this thing play out. Like you have to be blind or willfully ignorant to not acknowledge that Michigan has blatantly cheated for a number of years now.
3 years.
3 years now. Yeah. All the evidence is out there. We have everything that we need. This dude's on the sidelines at Central Michigan with sunglasses that filmed the Michigan State sideline. By the way, still waiting for Central Michigan to acknowledge who that coach was. Still haven't heard anything on that. That's just been lingering in the air all week. They blatantly cheated, and I don't understand defending it.
Hour number 2, Beavs on the road. Can they get a win on the road, or is it going to be Arizona all over again? Hour 2, Dirt and Sprague on the Fan.
coverage, the Odyssey app, and 1080 The Fan. Dirt and Sprague on Football Friday on 1080 The Fan.
The autumn wind is a pirate, blustering in from sea. With a rollicking song he sweeps along, swaggering boisterously.
This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app. Download the Odyssey app, follow 1080 The Fan, and enable push notifications to get the latest on the Ducks, Beavers, Blazers, and more.
Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
All right, welcome back in. Hour number 2, Dirt and Sprague here on Portland Sports Leader 1080 The Fan, the Odyssey app, youtube.com/1080 The Fan. Oh, yeah, the ladies love it.
Big fans of the YouTube.
I've been a dad for about 11 years, almost 12. I don't know if I've ever been cooler to any of my kids than when I told my 7-year-old this morning that I'm going to be on YouTube. And she's seen me, but like every time she hears or sees it, it's the coolest thing in the world to her.
You're on YouTube, man.
How did you get on YouTube, Dad? I just put a camera and turned it on.
Kind of a big deal. I don't know if you ever heard of it. Kind of a big deal.
YouTube came to us.
That's right. They begged us to put our show on their platform.
That's exactly. They said, you know what? We need this AM dial in Portland, Oregon, USA.
Our brand is dying. We have nothing that anybody wants to watch. We need you on our YouTube.
We've got Chris Fetters coming up at the bottom of the hour. Dogman.com. I have 2 questions. What the hell has happened to the Huskies, and why are they so bad at recruiting? We'll ask Chris that. We've got Heisman moments. Are they a real thing for you? I have a player that I'm going to challenge you on and say, what was the Heisman moment?
Oh, okay.
I understand that there are moments, but is it a little overrated? We'll talk about that a little bit. And will the Huskies lose at USC this weekend? Let's start the second hour. Oregon State on the road at Colorado. I think your team's going to beat Cal. We'll get to Cal, Oregon at some point, but it's Oregon State has they're coming off a road loss.
Sure.
You put up a thing last night, which bet you most comfortable with, and I wasn't surprised that some people responded with, I'm not trusting Oregon State with a 14-point spread on the road. Like, come on, what are we doing here? I'm kind of in that camp, to be honest with you. Like, please go do it. I need to see it. But nonetheless, going on the road and trying to bounce back from a game that felt like you should have won a weekend ago, that you ultimately lost to Arizona and kind of put yourself behind the 8 ball in the Pac-12 title game race.
Yeah, I don't quite have that feeling. I understand why Oregon State fan is looking at this saying, go prove it, right? Do it on the road and prove it. I would make the argument, maybe people disagree with me on this, I think Cal's better than Colorado. I don't really even... close as I shouldn't say it's not close, but if I had to pick a team to win on a neutral field head-to-head, I would take Cal to beat Colorado 10 out of 10 times. And you guys went to Cal and won by what? 2 tutties? What was the final of that?
52-40.
52-40, so you won by 12. Wouldn't quite cover this 13.5-point spread, but again, I think Cal is a better football team. They run the ball. They're more balanced offensively. Cal's defense is another conversation, but let's not sit here and act like Colorado can play any defense. If you go back and watch Colorado's game against UCLA last week, a lot of it was kind of weird, funky turnovers that allowed Colorado to stay in the game. UCLA didn't have a great offensive first half. Oregon State is more balanced than what UCLA is right now. I know DJ didn't have the best game, and we argued about this last Friday, but when you're comparing them to a team that can't stop anybody, I'm not fearful at all. Like, is Colorado going to hit a couple of deep shots? Like, yeah, probably. They're going to sling it around. Shedeur Sanders puts up decent numbers in almost every game outside of like 1 or 2 this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were able to score a little bit on your defense. But I don't see a way in my head. I'm trying to play this game out. Like, how is Colorado going to get stops, man? That's the 10th worst rush defense in the Pac-12, which is even saying something that how bad the teams behind them are. Oregon State's one of the top 3 or 4 rushing teams in the conference. Like, that's your stat. That's the only thing that I care about. If Colorado cannot stop the run, which they have not shown the ability to do all season, you cannot beat Oregon State. Like, I know Oregon State got a little cute with their play calling at times last week, but Arizona, occasionally would bottle up a run here or there and put you in a 2nd and long, and it's like, all right, now we got to throw the ball. Colorado's not going to have the ability to do that, and that's why I wouldn't sweat this one at all if I were a Beaver fan.
You may remember that at UCLA, or Colorado players had their jewelry stolen.
Yes, they did.
I actually found out from the press conference yesterday that so did UCLA players, so this was not an inside job by Bruins, that the stadium just got hit and security either was tied to it in some way or somebody got
Asleep at the
around
wheel.
it. Yeah, exactly. Here was Dion actually calling out the NCAA to like resolve this issue.
I know the kids would be forthright in what was stolen and some of our just staff members as well. And now all that stuff should be replaced. This is the Rose Bowl. They said the granddaddy of them all, right? I'm sure granddaddy has some money. Grandpa should have some money to get these kids. I'm going to have a list made out from these young men, and I know they're going to be truthful about what they lost so we could try to get that back for them. They may not be able to get the items back, but we should be able to reimburse them. That was unbelievable. But I did hear that the home team was robbed as well. So I don't know, but I did hear that. But that don't make no sense when you're out there balling and playing your heart out, and you're getting robbed in the same aspect. So I hope we could do something about that NCAA. You do something about everything else. Do something about that. When it comes to kids, in regards to the kids, the NCAA, you do something about everything else. Do something about this one. He said the granddaddy of them all, right? I'm sure granddaddy has some money.
I love that line.
I'm sure granddaddy has some money.
has some money.
I mean, he's not wrong at
No,
all.
he's not.
It's ridiculous. How is there not security? Who the hell gets into an opponent locker room?
It reeks.
And the home team locker room during the game?
You mentioned the physicality of Oregon State just running the football, and Dion was actually asked, do you practice differently? Do you prepare differently when you play a physical team? And this was Dion's answer.
Yes, it does. You incorporate more tackling drills in to compensate for the physicality. You pad them up maybe a little more, maybe allow a lot more contact because of the physicality. You may elongate some periods that involves physicality in it, that you want to make sure your team is ready and on point, but you still want to tail off on those things to kind of keep them fresh as well. So these guys are watching film. They've increased the film viewership tremendously since we challenged them to, so they know what they're in for. And I can't wait, especially since looking all the linemen in the eyes and just seeing how they responded in the candid conversation that we had. It's tremendous. I can't wait to see how they respond.
Dirt, you say, I don't know how they do it when you can't stop the run. I would agree with that, except UCLA can also run the football. They were up 7-6 at halftime on Colorado. And I would also point to the fact that Oregon State's head coach made one of the worst decisions I've ever seen in my entire life watching football.
Yes,
and so,
did.
yeah, it's easy to sit here and say, well, they run the football really well and Colorado's not good. You've seen this Oregon State team go on the road and just for some reason, coach, player, execution, it changes, and it doesn't change for the better. So that's the only counter argument I have to what you're saying is I don't know why, but everybody on that team and in that program goes on the road and either feels or thinks differently than they do at home.
I have that fear when you go on the road and you play good teams. I don't think Colorado's a good team in any way, shape, or form. They are one-dimensional offensively. They average like 70 rushing yards per game. They're one of the worst defenses in the conference. Their offensive line is horrible. Like, this just isn't a good football team, and we all overreacted to the start of the year. You can point to UCLA. I would counter-argue and say I think Oregon State's better than UCLA. You beat them head-to-head. I know it was in your own building, and maybe that game's slightly different if it's in L.A., but you beat them, and you beat them handily. And I was a game I thought UCLA had a chance to come in and win in Reser. Here's the key stat, and this goes back to last weekend's game. If Oregon State is a -4 in turnover margin, yeah, you're going to have a weird game on your hands. If you're -4, you turn it over 4 times, and Colorado doesn't turn it over at all, you might find yourself in a dogfight. Don't be -4 in the turnover margin, and UCLA wins that game by 30 points last weekend. Like, that's just the reality. Colorado cannot run the football. They cannot protect their quarterback, and their defense is terrible. You cannot win games in this conference at a consistent clip when 3 of those 4 things go against you. Shedeur is good. He's accurate. I think he holds on the ball a little too long. They got some good skill position players on the outside. That's all they got going for them. Other than that, the rest of the team sucks. And I think Oregon State is one of the more physical teams in the conference. They're one of the more balanced teams in the conference. And I think they're going to treat this as a big-time game and a bounce-back opportunity, nationally televised. They know how many people are watching it, and I think they're going to kick the crap out of Colorado.
Is Washington on upset alert, and are Heisman moments real? every year? Are they real things that need to happen for a player to win the award? We'll get to that next on The Fan. To USC, it feels like they've been close to losing the last couple weeks. Are they doomed to have a loss finally, or will they get past the Trojans down in LA? Big game, obviously, for their defense, tested against Caleb Williams and Michael Penix, who might be near the top if he's not at the top today of the driver's seat of the Heisman Trophy and winning that award. I hate to ask this on the fly, but I'm blanking in real time. Huskies had a Heisman winner? Swag? Do you know?
I don't. Not in
modern times. I know that.
Right? They haven't had if they got one way back in the 40s. I don't think so, though.
I
I feel like we should know that.
feel like we would know the answer to that if they had.
So it's got to be a
Heisman
time
winner.
before even Swag was live. Look in the 20s.
Yeah,
Maybe the 10s.
Here's 7 Huskies who have made a bid. I don't think they've won one.
Did Tuiasosopo go to New York?
He might have.
He was
I
really
also
good.
the one guy that was also getting a lot of hype. I can't remember if he was a finalist or not. Was Steve Emptman,
Oh, yeah, that's a
the
good one.
defensive lineman,
Yeah.
in their shared national championship year.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk with Chris Fetters about this at 7:30, bottom of the hour. I know Oregon is rooting for USC this weekend, as gross as that may feel to them, because they want Washington to lose for obvious reasons.
I also want a primo kick time on the Oregon USC game the next weekend, and if USC loses that game, there's a chance it's a night game. And Oregon's we got a strong run going here of no night games, and I would like to continue that.
I thought you loved night games. I love the after dark game.
Not home games. Road games, I don't care. Home games, I don't want anything to do with a 7:30 kick.
Well, I think Oregon is rooting for USC to win for the football standings. I think there's another reason they're rooting against them, and that's because if USC beats Washington, you mentioned it comes more of a prime time type of game.
Yeah, USC's only a 2-loss team, man. They're still alive in the Pac-12.
And he's getting buzz, but I think you can easily argue Bo Nix hasn't had the Heisman moment.
Totally fair.
And I find that narrative interesting. Do you believe that is a thing every year? There's a Heisman moment for a player?
I don't think it's every year. I do think there are times that you look at a player that maybe I doubt isn't even the right word, but there's a campaign building, and then they have a win or a performance that you say, aha, that's the best player in college football. I think there's a lot of those, not necessarily like the Mariota hurdle of Oregon State turned out to be his quote unquote Heisman moment, but that Oregon State team was not very good.
He was the guy I was going to throw at you. I don't think he had amazing numbers. His season was just outstanding. We saw it a couple times live. I wouldn't classify any of those wins that year in the conference, even at Washington. I think they were ranked.
That was probably the biggest one. That was a big Fox game. Game day was there.
Yeah.
That was 7 and 5 Sark Washington days.
Right. And that's kind of my point is, I don't know if you really need a moment more so than just have amazing numbers and maybe win your conference.
I'll throw out a guy, though, that I think had a moment, and a quarterback at his former school is trying to do the same thing this weekend. I think Joe Burrow is a good example of this. That Joe Burrow, his year at LSU, I think there was a bit of, as the year went on, like, yeah, this is great, but are we sure this is for real? Like, it came out of nowhere. And there was a certain aspect of people not buying in until what happened? Until he went into Tuscaloosa and accounted for like 6 touchdowns. They hung like 30 on him in the first half, and he beat Nick Saban. And that was the eye-opening moment of like, oh my God, not only is this team probably the best in college football, but that dude's going to win the Heisman Trophy. And Jaden Daniels has the chance to do the same thing in Tuscaloosa this weekend. But to your point, I think there's a good shot for Penix if they win and he plays well. It's a 4:30 game on ABC.
It's a massive game.
It's a spotlight game. It's probably the biggest spotlight. I don't mean any disrespect to Utah or Oregon State. This is probably the biggest spotlight game that they have left because of the opponent that they're playing and the quarterback matchup that goes into it.
You can't beat the lights of L.A., man, no matter how much you hate it. Caleb Williams, the last year's Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah.
The record, they're still a good team. I know they've not looked as good this year as many thought, but home game, so you're going on the road. And oh, by the way, tiny little caveat, recruiting. They've not been good at recruiting.
Yeah, get a win in Los Angeles.
Yes, like make your system look fun and enticing. I don't know. It's an opportunity for Penix. He obviously already has the Oregon game in which he threw the game-winning touchdown pass in that one.
He was very good in that game.
Yeah, he was good. But the Duck defense, to your point, like prior to that possession, he wasn't even in the 300 category. So
in the second half, he struggled a little bit. Yeah,
he did. It's a massive game for the Huskies. Do you feel like these last couple weeks are going to catch up to them, or do you look at USC and just say, this might be a week where they get right because the defense is so bad and embarrassingly bad at USC? Plus, their offense, I know they're scoring points, but they get off to slow starts too. The Arizona game, the Cal game, they get off to these weird slow starts. You do that against Washington, I don't believe you have an ability to get back with them the way you have against Arizona and Cal.
I have no clue what to make of Washington right now. I just don't. I don't know how to feel about them. I don't have a confidence level in either way. Like, if I want to try and argue they're going to win or try and argue that they're going to lose, I have no confidence. I have no clue what's going to happen in Los Angeles tomorrow, which makes it a really fun and exciting game to watch because there's a lot of games that you go into a field with. if they had bounced back and played against Stanford the way that we all thought they were going to, and that is last week taking them to cover a 4-touchdown spread, this game to me would be a bit of an afterthought of like, yeah, I mean, you're playing USC. Caleb Williams is good, but you're going to beat them because USC can't play a lick of defense, and they're just historically bad on that side of the ball. Washington will be fine. The fact that you gave up 500 yards of offense to Stanford on the road is, to me, a terrifying thing if you're a Husky fan, and I don't have a feel on this. I went back and watched yesterday the Cal at USC game, and every time you watch Caleb Williams, you're blown away with how good he is. And I know there's this like narrative out there that he's having a down year, he hasn't been as good. I pointed out yesterday, and I will point out again, his numbers are nearly identical to Jaden Daniels, who is, to a lot of people, leading the Heisman Trophy conversation.
And he might be leading it if they beat Alabama this weekend.
The ironic part about it, too, is I feel like USC and LSU are the same football team. They are a good offense with an elite quarterback and an ass defense. LSU's defense is terrible.
An ass defense.
Dude, Alabama could score 50 tomorrow if they wanted to.
I need that as a drop.
They are their defense is terrible.
You
USC's
love to say that. An ass defense.
Their defenses are awful, and they're propped up by offensive football, and they're propped up by their quarterbacks. I think they're the same team. I think they're the same player, with Caleb obviously being the better pro prospect. So I don't have a feeling in it at all. I'm not going to give you a hot take. I'm not going to give you an opinion. This is one I just want to sit back and watch because I don't know what to make of Washington right now.
I want to just highlight this. So obviously they still got a month of games left. I believe they have an open date at some point in the back end of their schedule because of the way it's.
We're talking about USC or
USC,
Washington?
Yeah, I think their schedule's weird. There's like an open date somewhere in these next few games. Season not over. Here's where it stands. Caleb Williams, Heisman Trophy winner last year.
Okay.
66 completion percentage, 4,500 passing yards, a 9.1 yard average, 42 tuds, 5 picks, a 168.5 rating. Caleb Williams this year, so far, 68 completion percentage, 2,600 yards. I don't think he'll match the yardage.
No, probably not.
But a 9.6 yard average, 25 tuds as of now, 4 picks, not 5, and a 175.4 rating. The idea that he's playing less than where they were last year, it's kind of ridiculous.
It's hilarious to me.
He's pushed the ball down the field further.
He had a bad game against Notre Dame, and that was it. They just had a clunker. Their offense was terrible, and they got punched in the mouth.
You could really make an argument that was his first bad game of his entire college career.
Yeah, it's a recency bias because you know what Jaden Daniels did to open the year? He had a horrible performance. He was really bad against Florida State. Go back and look at the numbers and watch that tape. He was awful in that game. He just has the benefit of it being his first game, and he's played great since, and Caleb Williams' game is more recent against Notre Dame.
Will Washington lose, and why are they so damn bad at recruiting with Kalen DeBoer? Chris Fetters joins us for the Daily Ticker. We'll get into Oregon Cal. We got the NFL games to talk about as well, and we will Sprague the line at 8:30, so get the Sprague the line sponsors in to the Vancouver Forward text line, 503-864-6326. Chris Fetters joins us on 1080 The Fan and YouTube.com next. But for Swag with the sports update.
This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, Ducks and Beavers, both heavy favorites this weekend as the Pac-12 looks to whittle down the title field contenders. Number 6, Oregon, hosting the Cal Bears, 2:30 from Autzen. You'll hear it on The Fan. Our live pregame coverage will start at 10 a.m. in Eugene. Ducks currently 24.5-point favorites at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sportsbook. 16th ranked Oregon State, more Pac-12 after dark. On the road again, trying to bounce back from the loss to Arizona. They'll take on the Buffaloes. They're 13.5-point favorites. Steelers spoiled the first NFL start of Will Levis for the Titans as Pittsburgh gets another fourth quarter comeback. They beat Tennessee 20-16. They're 5-3, even though they've been outgained in 7 of their 8 games this season. Seahawks get a big test Sunday morning in Baltimore. They'll take on the Ravens. It's a meeting of 2 division leaders. 10 a.m. kick. We'll have that one for you here on The Fan. Pregame coverage at 8 o'clock. Ravens 6-point favorites. Blazers back home tonight looking for a 3rd straight victory. They host the winless Memphis Grizzlies. 7 o'clock tip on Root Sports. Portland 2.5-point underdog. Scoot Henderson out tonight for the Blazers due to an ankle injury suffered in Detroit. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swangard from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Watch and wager on every game at Spirit Mountain Casino with a sportsbook powered by BetMGM. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
The home of prime time with Isaac and Sue. Weekday. Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
On 1080 The Fan. In this wide world of sports, some stories can slip through the cracks.
Now, before we do this, let's go over the ground rules.
This is the Daily Ticker, where Dirt and Sprague visit the insiders that are covering the stories you've heard about, and some you haven't.
How'd you do that? Actually, I'm not even mad. It's amazing.
The Daily Ticker with Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
All right, Daily Ticker time here on a Football Friday. Big one in L.A. tomorrow. Washington going on the road to take on USC. It is the primetime game on ABC. 4:30. Very excited for this one. Joining us now to preview it is our friend Chris Fetters at Chris_Fetters on Twitter. Go give him a follow. And he is the editor of Dogman 247. Chris, good morning to you. We were just asking the question, and I'm curious to get your perspective on it. What's happened the last 2 weeks? Like, I don't think anybody was surprised about a letdown game against Arizona State coming off the big emotional win against Oregon, but to see it linger into last week, what are people saying, and what are you seeing from what's happened here the last 2 weeks?
Well, it was interesting. You know, we didn't really know some of the background story until after the Stanford game, and then it came out that Michael Penix Jr. wasn't exactly feeling great, and a bunch of guys were actually pretty under the weather. Thankfully, it wasn't COVID related, but there was the flu going around, that type of symptoms. I mean, with Kim Reynolds, who's our guy at Dogman, our CEO, was down at the Stanford game and talked to Mike personally after the game, and he just said he didn't look great at all. He looked like, you know, he was just struggling and just, you know, had the kind of cold and flu symptoms that we all have this time of year. It's just going around. And Kalen DeBoer talked about it this week and basically just said, yeah, we deal with it every year. Every school has to deal with it, and we're getting through it. And I talked to Mike personally on Tuesday, and he looks great. He was a little feisty, which I took that as a good sign that he's kind of back to fighting fit and feeling better and all that. But, you know, DeBoer said basically as long as it doesn't decimate an entire position group, we'll be able to manage through it. And so I think that was a big element of it. And I also think, to be honest with you, it's one of those things where the higher up the mountain you go, the more you're taking everyone's shot, and the harder it is to breathe up there in that rarefied air. It's just, you know, they're one of 5, you know, Power 5 conference teams in the country to be undefeated. And it's interesting that they got downgraded for those games despite the wins, when there's a lot of other teams that are you know, one-loss teams right now that stubbed their toe and did the exact same thing that Washington did in terms of maybe let down games or some of the things that you describe, and yet Washington still came out with the win. So I thought that was interesting when the college football playoff poll came out on Tuesday, and the talking heads kind of mentioned that they were downgrading those wins, and yet there's a lot of people out there that are telling us at the same time that Washington's win against Oregon was arguably the best win of the season by any team. And so are they going to credit wins, or are they going to downgrade maybe bad wins? It's confusing to me. So when you talk about strength of schedule and things like that, that's where it all gets very confusing for me.
Yeah, Chris, Florida State almost lost at Boston College. Boston College isn't a very good team, but I
love how they used, by the way, the red bandana excuse in that game. So it was an emotional game for Boston College. It was the red bandana game, so that was excused. But whatever Washington has was clearly not a good enough excuse.
Well, Chris, I think you would acknowledge, though, like, we've never seen a Pac-12 team in this era of the conference that is now dead. We've never seen a team get through this unscathed. There's always like a random game or a big opponent that gets somebody. The last 2 weeks, you say they're sick, and then a couple weeks ago, Arizona State was kind of a weird game. Do you feel like they're vulnerable for that loss? Like, do you just feel like it's kind of hanging out there? Or do you feel, in talking to the coaches and players, that maybe the last 2 weeks have kind of refocused, you know, the goal here to get through this thing and not lose any of these games?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it really does all boil down to perspective, doesn't it? I mean, when you're the player or the coach, you're just trying to take this thing 1 week at a time, one game at a time, one day at a time, one snap at a time. You're just trying to get through it and just trying to do the best you can, especially mitigating circumstances like injuries or health in general. Those types of things are really looming large. But you're right. The history just dictates that there's going to be bogey games everywhere you turn. And you looked, you know, we went all the way back, and you looked at the very, very first day that this schedule was released, and you looked at, you know, at USC, home to Utah, and we obviously didn't know anything about Cam Rising at that time. And then you go on the road to Oregon State, which we all knew that was going to be a crazy game, a really, really tough game, arguably the toughest game left on that November slate that Washington was going to have. And then the Apple Cup, which throw the records out the window in the rivalry games. So you looked at that schedule and go, okay, that's just littered with problem games for Washington to try to solve, and I'm sure they all anticipated that they were going to be 8-0 going into the USC game, but for sure all those November games looked like they were just going to be bogey teams, and as you guys have said, history will dictate that really no team has ever gone through it completely unscathed, and so it's out there looming in the background, in the shadows, kind of wondering when it's going to pop its head up. A lot of people think it's going to be this week, because USC is still USC. I don't care how bad they are this year. They're still USC. They're still loaded from top to bottom with talent. Oh, by the way, they do have the returning Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback. He's okay. And so they've, you You just never know until the games are played, and so that's the difficult challenge for this Washington team. But if you followed them all year, like most have on the West Coast, you'll see a resilient team, a team that has been able to fight through adversity, whether it was against Arizona State or Stanford, and figure out a way to grind out, manufacture a win, and that's what they've been doing.
Yeah, I think you go through games like they have the last 2 weeks too. It's also the reminder you don't ever want to overlook anybody. I know I'm going into the Oregon Cal game saying the same thing this weekend of like, hey, Cal scoring points. You never know what could happen. Don't overlook them. Take everybody seriously. I don't think anybody has any doubt that Washington is going to absolutely shred this USC defense. Like USC is terrible on that side of the ball, maybe the worst in the conference, which is saying something with their ability to acquire talent. I think the question for everybody is, what does Washington do defensively against USC? And the performance against Stanford wasn't great. What do you make of the way Washington's defense is playing, and how, as you mentioned, going against a Heisman-winning quarterback, how they're prepared to try and slow down USC, who not as good as maybe we thought coming into the year, but can still score a lot of points on people?
Well, yeah, I mean, between the two offenses, you're talking about basically 1,000 yards and over 85 points combined a game. So I think that's why the narrative is out there that whatever the number is, take the over. I mean, that's just the bottom line on this game. Everyone thinks that the defenses are basically just going to be sizz, and it's the team that has, maybe, creates a turnover at a key moment, or just gets a fourth down stop, or hits that field goal at the very end, because Washington's done that. They've done that at USC. They did it under Sark. And the last time Washington played at USC, that was when Jake Browning was a true freshman. And Myles Gaskin, that was his breakout game as a true freshman, and they beat USC on the road. So, yeah, I get all the narratives and things like that. It's funny, though, because you talk about defense. I wonder if this storyline is going to be written after the game that this was a get-right game for one of these defenses. I just wonder if that's going to be the narrative that's going to be talked about after this, because both defenses have shown glimpses. Obviously, USC has got a huge problem with shot plays and explosives. I mean, that's been well documented. They've given up probably double what the next team in the Pac-12 has. It's bad. I mean, it's really bad. But again, it's weird to say that knowing that their front is arguably one of the best fronts in the conference. So how do you get the tackles for loss? How do you get the sack numbers, and yet you're giving up so many explosives on the back end? That's a question I haven't been able to figure out the answer to. And obviously the people at USC have not been able to figure out the answer to. I'm very curious to see how that works out tomorrow afternoon. And then for Washington, it's just one of those things where they just need to get takeaways. I don't know if you guys realize this. They still don't have a fumble recovery all season. They haven't been able to generate any fumbles at all. Now, they've been able to generate a lot more interceptions, for instance, compared to last year, and a lot of that is because their front has been able to generate pressures and get quarterbacks off the spot, yet conversely, they don't have anywhere near the sack numbers and tackles for loss that everyone expected them to have going into the season. So again, can one of these defenses get right? Can they figure out a situation where all three levels can function as one and make those key stops at the end of the game when it really matters? And I think Washington has been battle-tested on some of these fronts. I mean, again, you got a pick six to take the lead against Arizona State in a moment where not really anything was going right for them. And then USC, again, it's just been proven the last few games. I mean, what have they given up? About 42, 43 points a game? Right. I mean, it just doesn't – on paper, clearly it doesn't feel like a situation where a low-scoring game is going to happen. And yet in the back of my head, and again, it's my brain having – synapses firing on the wrong cylinders or something. But I just wonder if this is going to be a game where one of these defenses steps up and says, you know what, guys, I'm just not going to take it anymore. We're done with this. We're better than this. We can get stops. We can create turnovers. We can do the things we need to do. Look at USC. USC was down, 14 in the fourth quarter against Cal, at Cal?
Yep.
And yet they were able to generate those short fields with those turnovers, got right back in the game. and then all of a sudden they figure out a way to win. I'm wondering if something like that may not happen on Saturday.
I hate to ask you this because I'm going to have to ask you to also go as quickly as you can because we're over our clock here, Chris. We noted earlier the recruiting struggles of DeBoer and Washington. They're behind Iowa and Minnesota, and I know rankings can vary from how many you get versus the other schools, but it's been one of the weaknesses. I liken DeBoer to Chip Kelly. Really smart football guy, knows how to coach, knows how to get things out of players, but I don't know. The recruiting just doesn't seem to be on line with where the program is. Cause for concern for you about Washington's inability to recruit at an elite level.
Well, I'd say a couple things. First, I did a quick analysis on this because that's clearly a big storyline for the Washington fans. If you look at the recruiting rating by number, like if you actually go by the rating per recruit, because right now Washington is looking a lot more at the portal than they ever have before, clearly. And that's where you get the guys like Mike Penix. And right now, but if you look at the high school players, they're actually averaging per recruit a better rating than they were under Chris Peterson. And Chris Peterson's recruiting after year 3 continued to get better and better. So I fully expect that trend to also continue under DeBoer as they have a stronger and stronger story to tell. And then the second part, as I just mentioned, the portal is huge for Washington right now. And, they're going to have to replace Mike Penix. Do you think they're going to have a problem going out to the college ranks and saying you can be the next Mike Penix?
No.
I don't think that's going to be much of a problem. So, again, it's kind of a combination of those two things. But clearly, they need to continue to ramp up their recruiting because that's the lifeblood of every program, and especially when you're going into the Big Ten, where it's going to be even more competitive times a factor of 100 than it was in the Big 12 or the Pac-12.
Yeah, great stuff. Chris Fetters at Chris_Fetters on Twitter. Go give him a follow. Dogman247. Can't wait for the game tomorrow. Chris, thanks so much for joining us to preview it, and hopefully we'll catch up again here soon.
Okay, good morning, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
There you go. Chris Fetters. Good stuff from him on Washington and USC. Yeah, that was the report out of Stanford, an illness going through the locker room. Hell, I was sick last week, so I know what that felt like. I gave you my illness, so you've been dealing with phlegm for a week.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. You're welcome. And went through our locker room as well, and we powered through, okay? You battle through. No excuses around here.
Nope.
We get the job done. Let's talk a little bit more about not only this game, because you did have some interesting things to say there, but also the rest of the Pac-12 slate, because there's a handful of other games that I'm kind of circling, really excited for, not necessarily conference title implications, but really big games for the teams involved. And we'll continue on that, John. We'll get to Oregon and Cal coming up top of the hour. And don't forget your Sprague in the Line sponsors at the Vancouver Ford text line at 503-864-6326. Back after this on The Fan.
Who's stinking it up?
Woo! Do not go in there.
It's time for Who's Stinking It Up, a sports lowlight that's ripped from the headlines.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
Brought to you by Three Mountains Plumbing. Schedule your appointment online at threemountainsplumbing.com.
Now Garland brings the puck in front again. Beauvillier scores. He's got 2, and it's a 500th game to remember as Anthony Beauvillier puts the Canucks into double digits in San Jose.
There's John Shorthouse, Rogers Sportsnet. Canucks housed the Sharks last night, 10-1. The Sharks, the only winless team in the NHL.
That's not good, Bob. I don't think there's anybody even that only has one win. Most everybody else has at least two or three.
More, yeah.
And thank God Connor Bedard didn't go there. I'm glad he's in a major market, and the NHL rigged it to get him to the Blackhawks.
Who's Stinking It Up? Brought to you by Three Mountains Plumbing. Make plumbing and electrical services delightful. Get your time back and let the pros tackle whatever project you need completed. Schedule an appointment online at Three Mountains Plumbing. That's threemountainsplumbing.com.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
On 1080 The Fan.
Well, Chris Fetters comes on, and Husky fans are saying, "Amen, brother." Duck fans are saying, "Got a lot of excuses." I love it.
I get it. I understand the rivalry and the hostility. I didn't really feel like. Did you feel like there were excuses there?
No, I mean, teams get sick. That's a thing. I didn't think Michael Penix looked that sick. I thought he was not their problem last weekend. So that was the only pushback that I would have of like,
sure,
I get that Penix, they're saying, and I take his word for it, that he was not feeling great after that game. Go look at his numbers. Like I thought he was slinging the rock.
He threw for almost 400 yards and like 4 touchdowns. It wasn't a
They got to
problem.
a clunky start, I guess, if you want to do that. Like first couple of drives weren't perfect, but as the game went on, it was not. Their issue last week was their defense. Which is why I wanted to ask you guys more on this game, because I'm obviously coming at it from a slant. Like
you're not. You're come on, man. Like you cannot like some team and still also be honest about it.
Well, that's why I wanted to ask you guys. Like, how do you feel? Are you confident in Washington going on the road to beat USC? Is this a high confidence game? Because
No,
Washington is the better team. Nobody would disagree with that.
No, I'm not, because it's a road game in college football. How many years of our lives we're gonna watch teams? Oklahoma lost to Kansas last weekend, and it wasn't particularly packed in that stadium. There are a lot of Oklahoma fans. You can't tell me that was the Oklahoma team we've seen all year.
No, last couple of weeks they've had a similar trend actually to Washington, where they had that big marquee win a number of weeks ago
against Texas.
I think it was the week before the Oregon-Washington game,
yeah.
And then after they have not been
UCF
quite the same.
And Kansas, and they got their comeuppance by playing a close game against a good team. You know, I think they're better than Kansas, but I would kind of put USC in this similar category of they're still a good team. Like, just because they've lost some games doesn't mean they suck all of a sudden. I think people know that. Caleb's awesome. I'm putting this confidence meter at like a 6 out of 10. I'm leaning with confident they can win, but like I'm leaving enough room to say, oh, I'm not shocked that they lost this weekend because of what you pointed out there. The offense was atrocious against Arizona State.
Yes, it was.
But hangover game, I get it. And Oregon has a little bit of what Stanford used to have, I think. Because of the size and skill of their players, I think there's a hangover effect here. You play a physical team like Oregon, you may not feel right the very next week. Plus, you had the emotional high of where they were after winning that game. I wasn't that shocked, but also their offense was inexplicably not there against Arizona State. Their defense was the problem last weekend.
Which is weird because they've had back-to-back weeks where the problem's been the opposite.
Yeah, they've taken turns.
They couldn't score a touchdown
right.
against Arizona State, which shouldn't be a case at home.
Right.
But their defense got a pick six and won them the game. And then last week when they needed stops desperately in the second half, ass defense. Put the game away. They played ass defense in the second half against Stanford.
You do love to say when teams are not good defensively, they play
ass defense.
And that's a great the way you say ass too. You like have an emphasis on it.
I'm the ass man of this show.
Like it's not a good ass. It's like ass defense.
There's good ass. And then there's ass.
Yeah, there is.
Ass defense.
That's an angry ass.
It is an angry ass.
It is an angry ass.
That's the ass that eats the underwear. You're like, you got a bad wedgie going on. It's like the ass is eating it. I think the only thing I would nitpick with what Fetters said of all the things, it'd be the recruiting. It wouldn't be so much the performance. Because, Dirt, you know, and I know, and Swag knows, everybody knows, good and great teams, if they get through things, they're just going to have weird games. Maybe that's that for Oregon this weekend. This Mendoza kid's moving the ball around a little bit.
Dude, Cal's offense is on fire right now.
But Cal comes in kind of a depressing opponent, right? Like, is Duck fans super excited for this game? I don't feel that energy. And they're 24-point favorites. Again, not saying Oregon's going to be in some dogfight, but I'm just saying sometimes a season can lend itself to weird games. Where you lose me a little bit is the recruiting. And, like, we're now kind of nitpicking, I guess, of what did he say? The overall recruit.
When you look at the rating per player, it's not that bad. But when you don't have that many players, it's not a real strong leg to stand on.
There's some technical truth to that, but we've seen if you're
out recruited by Virginia Tech and you have roughly the same recruit.
If you rely on the portal exclusively or predominantly, we've seen Oregon try to do that, trying to find the next quarterback, and how many
there's a Dakota
misses
Prukop
did
out
they
there.
find before they got Bo Nix?
Well, but not many, though. Like, Prukop was bad, but Adams was awesome when he played.
He was great the year before, yeah.
Who would you have after? Who was after that?
And then it was Herbert. Herbert took over, and Herbert started,
Right,
and then it was Anthony Brown, and you had to deal with Anthony Brown.
Anthony Brown. Okay, that's a good one. So another one to Swag's point, but like you still went to a Pac-12 title game with that, and that was an awful quarterback. I think he is ultimately going to just always lean heavy on the portal, because I've said this all year. I think the portal for a lot of coaches is rivaling high school recruiting. I mean, how many classes at schools do we tout, and then a year or two later, half that class is gone? Yeah. Hell, Oregon and your coach did this.
Totally.
Cleaned out the 2021 class, kept a couple guys, and they've been good, but kept a couple and moved on and revamped this thing entirely through the portal, including at quarterback. So I get the cause for concern. You shouldn't be behind Virginia Tech, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Pittsburgh, Rutgers, Georgia Tech, TCU, Iowa, Minnesota, NC State, UCF, Purdue,
keep going.
Stanford, Nebraska, Texas Tech, Kentucky, Arkansas, South Carolina. You shouldn't be behind these programs in the high school ratings. But to his point, Penix leaves, all this offense. How do you, as a transfer quarterback, if you're one of the top ones, not go, oh, that guy won the Heisman, or, oh, that guy was in the Heisman race all year and put up numbers?
Sure.
Like, that's what they're going to lean on, and that's just what it is.
I would think the counter argument to that is, they're going to be able to find a quarterback. DeBoer's backed that up. Like, Penix is the proof, and if I'm a quarterback, I would absolutely look at that system and say, I want to go play there. The counter argument to that, though, of just being able to do it through the portal, what else are they going to lose this offseason? You're losing 2 NFL wide receivers. You're losing 2 NFL offensive linemen.
Yeah.
You're losing 2 NFL pass rushers on the edge who are all very talented players and probably don't get the conversation that they deserve because Penix gets the headlines and the spotlight. That's not easy to address in the portal. And that's where the recruiting question comes in of there will always have to be a 50-50 balance. I think you're right in terms of the portal increasing in importance, but I don't think it'll ever overtake recruiting completely because you have to have the ability to have guys that you're developing at positional needs, and then you go plug holes. Like, that's the model that works the best when the teams are winning at the highest level. In Washington, this team, honestly, is a part of that. Like, Odunze was the original Washington guy. He's not a transfer portal kid, but Penix was, right? They plugged the holes where they've needed to. If you're just going to lean heavily in one area and not be able to develop your own players, that's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see where it goes. But I am fascinated by this game tomorrow. I have no feel in Washington and USC. You tell me Washington wins by 2 tutties and runs away with it, not surprised. You tell me Caleb throws 5 touchdowns and Washington's defense loses them the game, not surprised. I can't wait to watch it tomorrow at 4:30. We got a lot to get to in the final hour of the show. Sprague and Line coming up at 8:30. Get your fake sponsors in, 503-864-6326. We'll do some gambling at the bottom of the hour. I do have some thoughts on Oregon and Cal. I want to start there. We got poll questions we need to answer. It's loaded. Don't go anywhere. Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
From the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, Ducks and Beavers are both double-digit favorites tomorrow as the Pac-12 title field could shrink a bit. Number 6, Oregon's up first, 2:30 kick from Autzen hosting the Cal Bears. We'll have it for you here on The Fan. Live pregame coverage begins at 10 a.m. from Eugene. Ducks 24.5-point favorites at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sportsbook. Number 16, Oregon State trying to bounce back from that loss in the desert. They're still on the road in Boulder to take on the Buffaloes. They are 13.5-point favorites over Colorado. More Pac-12 after dark, though. It's a 7 p.m. kick on ESPN. Seahawks have a huge test Sunday morning in Baltimore, taking on the Ravens in a meeting of division leaders. 10 a.m. kick for you here on The Fan. Pre-game coverage will start at 8 a.m. Ravens, 6-point favorites. And the NBA's in-season tournament group games start tonight. Portland among the slated. They're looking for a third straight victory, hosting the winless Memphis Grizzlies, 7 o'clock on Root Sports. Though Portland now 3.5-point underdog. Scoot Henderson is out with an ankle injury suffered in Detroit. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swigart from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Watch and wager on every game at Spirit Mountain Casino with a sportsbook powered by BetMGM. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
Live, local, and free. No subscription required. Portland's sports leader is 1080 The Fan. This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague.
There's glory in the legends of this hard muscle life, and there's poetry in each season made of sweat and strife.
Dirt and Sprague on Football Friday.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app. Download the Odyssey app, follow 1080 The Fan, and enable push notifications to get the latest on the Ducks, Beavers, Blazers, and more.
All I know is, you mess with me, you got problems.
Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
Hey, let's do this. Final hour. Dirt and Sprague here on Portland Sports Leader 1080 The Fan. 99.5 HD2, the Odyssey app, and live on YouTube.
You are looking live.
We got Husky fan and Duck fan yelling at each other. Beaver fan chiming in.
There we go.
It is
Beaver fan. Hey, what about us?
That's the way it should be.
It's lit, as they would say on the YouTube live chat, so you can go chime in there. Ass defense. Oh. Husky honks are saying UW's defense was good enough to stop Oregon on 4th down several times.
3 weeks ago, yeah. We've talked about the last couple of weeks in this matchup particularly. Do you feel that same confidence? I mean, maybe they will. I don't know.
They could. I think that's going to be – that Cal-USC game last week was so fun to watch. Like, just big play, turnover. Like, that was the kind of game we love about college football, 50-49 final. I have a feeling the Washington USC game is just going to be the same. Like, you're just going to get big play after big play after big play, and it's going to be an absolute shootout. And I love those games.
I would actually say to both those coaches who are amazing, I won't be shocked if this becomes a bit of a Dylan Johnson, Marshawn Lloyd game.
Run the football.
I mean, it should. It should. Oregon ran the ball successfully against UW, and UW actually was able to run on Oregon, which says you should be able to run on USC as well. And help your quarterbacks a little bit. Don't put the pressure of every play, every down on the arm. I mean, they're awesome quarterbacks who are capable, but I don't know, man. I watched a lot of that USC Cal game, which was wild. And I'm watching Marshawn Lloyd, and I'm just like, what are we doing? How do we not have like a balanced attack at USC? Right. This dude's good. The run blocking's not awful.
Yeah.
And UW, like, this is a not good defense. You should be able to not put it all on Penix. Dylan Johnson, go out there and go for 120 yards, like help the offense a little bit, be more balanced instead of, sling it again, 3 straight plays, punt, or touchdown, or whatever it ends up being.
They have a bit of a lingering thing going on at USC where they can run the football pretty efficiently, actually.
I know.
They just go away from it.
I watched this cat,
reason.
Dirt, I watched this Lloyd player. I watch him go for 8 to 12 yards, and I'm like, man. And then, like, the next 4 plays, throw. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
And I get it. You wanted, like, Caleb Williams is your quarterback, so that's probably a difficult dilemma mentally. Marshawn Lloyd last week averaged 7 yards a carry. Now, Cal's defense is bad, but he averaged 7 yards a carry. He had 17 carries in that game. That was it. 17 for $115 and 2 tutties. That's 7 yards a carry, and they only ran it with him 17 times. Ran it as 130 yards as a team. Their numbers were down because Caleb had a couple of sacks, and that tied into the team rushing numbers. But they can run the football, and they just, if they stay committed to it, they could be much more balanced offensively than what they've shown. On the other side of it, I do want to talk a little bit about Oregon and Cal. I'm not just saying this to say this, and I think we're talking about a team that is a prime example of why, especially at this time of year, you never take anybody lightly. Like 2 weeks ago, Washington probably should have lost to Arizona State at home. And you can make an argument Arizona State's the worst team in the Pac-12. They're in the conversation of being the worst team in the Pac-12. And they damn near beat the Huskies in Seattle. And so I've reached that point where it's like, I'm not taking anybody lightly. I'm not expecting anything to be a guarantee or a walk in the park. It's supposed to be really bad weather tomorrow in Eugene, kind of rainy and cold. You tell me there's some weird, like somebody drops a punt or there's a fumble. Big reason why Cal ended up losing that game to USC was because how many times they turned the football over. But offensively, this is kind of a unique team. Cal's found it, man. It's kind of started with that Oregon State game where they hung 40 on him. Everybody's like, hey, what's going on here?
They put this kid in.
Dude, they
this
did.
Mendoza kid.
He did it. They did it in Seattle. A lot of it came in the second half, but they scored a lot of points on a lot of yards against the Huskies. They've scored 49 last week. And again, I know USC's terrible defensively and Oregon is not USC, but offensively, they've kind of found it here over the last month or so of the season, and it starts with Mendoza. And Jaden Ott's a really good back who doesn't get the conversation he deserves because he plays for Cal.
Well, they got two really good backs. Ott is the forefront of that, and obviously gets a lot of the love when you talk about California football. I kind of see this game, as much as we're talking about this Cal offense, and, you know, they put up 49 points, and they're a 2-point conversion away from maybe winning and beating USC. I'm kind of looking at this game a little bit like the Utah game they played a couple weeks ago that nobody remembers because nobody cared or watched.
It was like 41-14.
34-14.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I think the final's going to be in Eugene. When you have really crappy weather, the last thing you want to do is jeopardize or be risky. And I'm not saying Dan Lanning's going to suddenly go soft on play calling and be less aggressive. I just could see a scenario where it's like, let's just lean on Bucky and Jordan James this weekend and kill clock, and Bo will go and throw for 220 and maybe a touchdown, and we'll be good. And we get a final score somewhat of 34-14. An unmemorable game in crappy weather that fans leave mid-fourth quarter because it's apparent that Cal can't do anything on this Oregon defense. And I think that's the other part of this, right, is what you do to USC's defense, USC's defense at home, and what you do to an Oregon State team that doesn't play nearly as well on the road is not the same as what you do at a Utah or what you're going to do at a Eugene. So, yes, this Mendoza kid's playing better. Ott is a stud. I just don't think this offense is going to be what it was a week ago, and I think this Oregon defense is nasty. I love Brandon Dorless. He's one of my favorite players in the conference this year. Their DBs they've played really well this season. I just don't know if Cal's going to travel the same way that they played a week ago. So I kind of view this game, Dirt, unfortunately, in that Utah 34-14 kind of sphere.
If you tell me that it follows a similar script to Washington State, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Where you get Cal putting together a drive or two early in the game.
Right.
It's like 17-10 at the half, and you're like, this is a little uncomfortable. And then you look up at the end of the third, and it's like 31-10, and Oregon is separated a little bit. Because people forget that Washington State game. That was a 17-13 game at the half.
Yeah, and then Washington State punted, and Oregon only scored touchdowns. That was the difference.
Then it eventually changed. Like, Cal just doesn't have the defense, I think, to strike a ton of fear into you. But I can't remember if it was on Primetime yesterday or if it was on his coach's show on Wednesday. But I thought Lanning had an interesting comment this week where he said basically he's telling his team and approaching this week as like this is the playoffs. Like they're viewing this. I think he used the analogy. This is our wild card weekend of like we've made it to November. November is its own season in its own right. Mm-hmm. This is where dreams are realized or hopes are dashed. Like at this point in the season because you're now in the final month and you can like almost touch it. It's there. It's right around the corner. You have 4 games to go in your season. You're going to be favored in all 4 of those games, and then you'll have to get through, if you get to there, a Pac-12 championship game likely against Washington. But again, we'll find out how that plays out. Like you can see the roadmap. You can see the picture, and the last thing you need is to have one of these games where it's like, we got USC next week. That's a big one. Let's gear up for that, and you overlook Cal, and you find yourself in a 21-20 game in the rain in the fourth quarter. It's that uncomfortable, uneasy feeling, and you're like, oh, God, don't let this happen. Please don't lose to Cal at home. And so I loved the analogy of saying, like, we've made it to November. He's a coach that's been through these before as obviously a defensive coordinator and realizing that this is the time of year where you have to play your best football. Fetters touched on it a half hour or 40 minutes ago, and I think he's right. that teams get up to play you. Like Washington now has a target on their back, unlike they've had in years past. That's
every week.
It's a top 5 team in the country. That's a marquee win if you could pull it off. There's eyeballs on it because of what they're doing. Oregon is in the same spot. You're going to get teams' best shots the rest of the way, and so you don't have the benefit to take anybody lightly, and I like the analogy. Wild card weekend, go win in advance in the playoffs this weekend.
I mean, it's a massive approach. I'd be willing to wager if you got a bunch of coaches like Dan Lanning's of the world in a room, you would probably point to games like this where you mean no disrespect to your opponent, but you go, should win this game comfortably.
Yeah.
And I bet you they'd all be like, yeah, those are the hard weeks.
Yeah, because your team's not as dialed and as motivated. Like Oregon was, you could tell last week going to Utah, game day was there, top 15 matchup. Like I know we didn't give it much of a chance, but going in, they were focused, they were dialed. I don't know if you watched their movie that they do the week after, but it was a really good one this week, and they had coach headset audio that was kind of fun to listen to. The message to the team was everybody's saying Utah's physical and nobody puts you into that category. You're for flash, you're for clicks and all that. They took it personally, and they wanted to send a message. There's no message being sent at 2:30 on the Pac-12 network on Saturday.
No, there's not, but like those also can bring a team together, these games.
Yep.
Of showing up and handling business. You mentioned the slow start they had against Wazoo. Yeah, there was a slow start. And then like 3 possessions between the teams was the separator. And that was the entire game. And I tend to, again, think that this is going to end up being a blowout from start to finish. I don't know if I subscribe to the theory you're saying of the Washington State game. But either way, like these are the moments as a coach, you got to keep it in check. You got to understand. I love that. I love saying it's the playoffs because it is. November is the month that gets a lot of really good teams. And they go from really good to either back to kind of middle of the pack and lose their opportunity, or some will separate themselves and become great and near the top.
Look at Oregon and Washington last year going into November. Oregon was a one-loss team still alive in the playoffs. They lost to Washington. They lost to Oregon State. Their season crumbled in the final month of the season.
That being said, you are absolutely rooting for USC because you want, if you think Bo Nix has a legit shot to win the Heisman, you want USC coming off a win, going to Eugene to make it prime time for the, quote, moment where he can just go against USC's defense, shred the living hell out of them. Franklin can get 2 tuds. Johnson can get 2 tuds. And Bo Nix has 330 passing yards with 4 touchdowns and 5 incompletions.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stat line you look for when we talk about Heisman Trophy stuff. So, yeah, that's getting a little ahead here in what we're talking about. But also, it's part of the weekend, I think, from the fan perspective of Oregon take care of business against Cal, and if USC can pull the upset, they come into Eugene with more eyeballs looking at it and a really good opportunity for Bo Nix to continue to solidify maybe a New York invite and be bodacious.
Last couple thoughts on this for me. One, I hate the uniforms. For the love of God, just wear a normal shade of green, not like the poopy green. Why do we need paint spec?
Why are you such a Debbie Downer?
Can you just wear green and yellow? Can
They're
I
not
just
for you.
get defense? Green and yellow. Have you seen the uniforms this week? Have you guys seen the pictures of them?
Aren't they doing like the Army dark navy or dark green, color?
We're doing like
Is
the
that what it
weird,
is?
you've had Taco Bell and now you have diarrhea green, like you're dehydrated. It doesn't look like green. You see it in person and it looks more brown, like we're wearing silver. Like,
do the kids love them though?
Probably. I had
all these kids telling me that they loved the Oreo uniform. Kids of my friends. I'm like, do they like them? Like, they love them. I'm like, okay, well.
I know. That's all that matters. I'm old. I'm a fuddy-duddy, but these weeks drive me nuts, and I can't stand it. Second thought, Mendoza, a lot of fun to watch. He's a really fun, like he'll run around and make some plays. Like he's a fun quarterback. He's injected some life into Cal.
Yeah.
And last but not least, one thing I was reminded of yesterday. So I went back and watched that USC Cal game. I just wanted to refresh myself on some of the plays and what happened in it. We didn't even talk about this week, the Pac-12 officials allowing USC to run a play to start the second half that still was in the first half. We didn't even talk about that. We totally glossed over that.
It was on my show sheet, and I didn't get to it. It's the most ridiculous thing I've maybe ever seen from officials.
How is that a thing?
Halftime went 20 minutes longer because of this.
So because they were going through the review process?
They were reviewing the process.
Jesus.
How many of these could you do every game? Like, just let the second tick off. Stop it. And Sprague, it was a field goal. Like, okay.
It was hilarious that they missed it,
They
too.
missed it, yeah. So ball don't lie. I want to add one more thing, too.
Yeah.
Franklin having a monster game the next 2 weeks, it's interesting what narratives are. Have you seen Marvin Harrison's numbers?
I know, Franklin's.
And Troy Franklin's numbers?
Yeah, I have.
Odunze and Franklin are better. But Harrison's a Heisman candidate? What are we doing here? Yeah. It's because it's Ohio State and because their quarterback sucks. Narratives are driving things more than facts. Franklin is a beast. Odunze is a stud. They're having better seasons or as good a season as Marvin Harrison Jr. One's maybe going to go to New York for the Heisman, and the other two aren't even mentioned on their own team.
No.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, the quarterbacks steal the headlines, and Harrison doesn't have that at Ohio State because McCord doesn't steal the headlines.
He sucks. He's not a good quarterback.
He's not very good. All right, I want to stick in college football. Some final thoughts on the weekend to come. Hopefully it's a chaotic one. Also, something somebody's doing something tomorrow that I'm wondering if it's going to catch our attention. We'll get to that. And then, of course, Sprague the line coming up at the bottom of the hour, 503-864-6326. That is the Vancouver Ford text line. Get your fake sponsors in. Some more college football next on The Fan.
This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
On 1080 The Fan.
All right, well, Sprague the line coming up 10 minutes from now.
Oh, you know my strategy this weekend?
What do you got, Bob? What do you got?
Don't overthink it. Know you're picking winners because you are the system. You're not a system player.
No. We're not going to keep you on a leash this weekend.
No, you're not.
We're letting you off.
I'm going to run free because I am the system.
He is my least favorite athlete of all time. I think I have come to that conclusion. Outside of, like, obviously criminals and murderers and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
like,
thank you.
Just the general athlete out there, I think James Harden tops my I hate you list.
I still follow one of his marketing guys, Nate Jones, and he had this thing where he's like, man, this Harden stuff, I have people who don't even really watch the NBA. They're like, I hate this guy. And he was kind of dumbfounded by it. I just wanted to be like, really? I watch basketball. I get it.
I understand it. They're doing something tomorrow. Will it get your eyeballs? So I don't know if you guys saw this earlier this week.
Germany game?
Yes.
Can't wait.
I don't know what the hell you're talking about. The Pat McAfee show is going to turn into college football red zone tomorrow.
I don't have any interest in this. We had a listener tag us in this. I don't think it's going to go well.
So here's just, if you didn't see the announcement, here's what they're doing. It's going to be on ESPN2 tomorrow, starting at 4:30 our time. So right at the start of the USC, that's right when those primetime games kind of begin. And they are going to include rotating coverage of ESPN slate of games. So
because they can't do Fox or CBS, they can't, or Peacock. Like that's
so
why
you won't have the Alabama LSU game because that's a CBS game.
Exactly.
So here are the games they will rotate through: Iowa State, Kansas.
Yikes.
USC, Washington.
Are we watching that anyway?
Rice, SMU. Catch the fever.
Yeah.
Mississippi State, Kentucky. North Carolina State, Miami. And UTEP versus Western Kentucky. Yeah, that will be their slate.
We've brought it up a lot, and I appreciated the listener tagging us in this that had seen that he had made this announcement. And look, for some college football fans, this is great. I knew right away I wasn't interested because they don't have access to Fox and CBS and NBC and all that.
I don't know what the primetime Fox game is tomorrow.
I don't either, but when you have to just go to like those 5 games, and then I think he said that when they don't have any action, they'll kind of replay highlights from the day that had happened already and then give commentary on it, which, again, if you are a nerd and watch all of the college football, this is for you. I'm just more in the camp of like, I have a set amount of teams that I like to watch or check in on or see. And a couple of those games you named, I have no interest in. And so, like, good idea. I don't know. I don't think it's going to particularly go well.
No, the 4 p.m. Fox game is BYU at West Virginia.
It's been a rough start to the Big 12 for some of these teams. Have you seen UCF?
That's your primetime game? That's going head-to-head with Bama, now, LSU, and
CBS,
USC Washington.
Yeah,
have fun with
LSU,
that.
Bama, ABC has UW.
What's the big nooner? What's the Gus?
Bedlam, I think, right?
Bedlam. Oh, is it Bedlam? Okay.
Or NBC has Purdue at Michigan. At least you have Michigan. But
still,
Purdue
sucks, dude. They got housed by Nebraska last week.
Oh, I don't know what the spread. It's got to be in the 30s.
Bet it.
You take Michigan. They are going to destroy Purdue. It's going to be all of Purdue's fault that the Big Ten hates Michigan.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's not enough games in there that could get me. I still wish, because it's the one issue that I have with college football. I love the 9 a.m. till basically midnight aspect of it, and there's big games on all day. I am overwhelmed. Like, tomorrow is a good example for me. So I got to do the pregame show. Yes. I'm coming back because there's too many good games on. I'm not staying for Oregon and Cal. That game will start at 2:30. Oregon will always be the big screen team for me. It's my team. I want to watch the game. Even if it's a blowout, I'll probably keep it on. But then in the second half, you're going to have Alabama, LSU, and USC Washington kick off at the same time, let alone I guarantee you there will be another game in that mix. Maybe it's Purdue pushing Michigan. There'll be another one in the mix that you're like, God, I wish I could, but you're like following on your phone because you don't have any more screens available. It is a little overwhelming to keep up with all of it.
Oh, yeah. I've had several weekends where I've needed 4, and I only have 3. I have an iPad, I have a TV, and I have my phone. Like, I don't have, and then I'm like, I can't tweet.
Yeah.
I'm like,
where's my, I can't send out my thoughts. I'm watching a game on my phone.
So when it gets to 4 games, I'm like, damn it, man. What am I going to do about this? And then, like, turning from channels on a stream is so much worse than having a cable controller where you're just like last or the guide.
Yes, you're finally coming around to my point of view there.
I made that point of view like 4 years ago when I had YouTube TV.
You always fought me. You're such an old fuddy-duddy.
No. Check the tape, Bob. That's the one thing I've said streaming sucks at. And they still haven't figured it out. How have we not figured this out? I will tune into this for 5 to 10 minutes just to see the aesthetic.
To see what it looks like.
To see the Reese-Pat McAfee interaction. But yeah, I mean, when you don't have a governing... I know the NCAA is supposed to be this, but when you don't have a governing body with the Power 5, you don't get the access to the other network. That's why the red zone works.
Yeah, because you get all the games.
Yes.
If you only had AFC games, the red zone would not hit quite the same.
I wouldn't. I don't know if I would watch it. I don't know how to feel about
that.
What
about that Niners and or the Cowboys and Eagles? I can't watch that game.
Who would you pick to be the Scott Hansen if they created this, though? We get a commissioner and the conferences are together and they could finally do it. Who would be your pick to be the Scott Hansen? And doesn't he kind of have to copy Scott Hansen, except he says, 15 hours of commercial-free football starts now?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Because it's like 9 a.m.
Scott
to
Hansen
10:30 p.m.
Elite at his job. He's very good.
Well, there's a reason the other one died.
Exactly. So that's the tough part. I don't really, there's a lot of really good college football voices out there.
I didn't know who Scott Hansen was prior to the Red Zone, so maybe it's
true.
You just find a Scott Hansen that we don't know about.
You could just have Paul Feinbaum with his feet up, taking a nap.
I don't think Josh Pate, that's in his alley.
Yeah.
Okay. He's good commentary observe guy. I don't know play-by-play.
Jumping around game to game to game to game.
Hey, Swag, you might have caught this. I know you didn't because you're a loser. What did you think of Bob Myers on play-by-play the other night?
He was good on play-by-play. He wasn't as good as when he was on Countdown.
Yeah,
He's
I agree.
much better
He's a
there.
studio guy.
Is he doing games for ESPN?
Yeah, ESPN got
Is
him.
he their primary, who's their big game announcers now?
Well, it's Rivers, Doris Burke, and Breen.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
So he's like the
He
secondary
was with
crew
Mark
or whatever.
Jones.
He might be third. I think Reddick might be second.
Oh, okay. I love
I
JJ
don't-
Redick.
And he was, I think there was a third person with him too. It wasn't just him,
Oh, see,
but I can't remember.
I'm in the minority. I think Reddick is better in studio.
Oh, okay.
I think JJ Reddick could be more serious Charles Barkley. He knows the game. He can explain the game in a way that makes sense. And he can push back to a lot of stupid commentary that you tend to get when you have Screaming A. Smith in the studio.
Yeah, I think for Bob Myers, he's got to learn. The toughest thing to learn when you're doing play-by-play is how to make your point and get out so you can get right back to the play.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just a timing thing. That's a very technical
Yeah.
piece of being really good at play-by-play.
I was really good at play-by-play back in the day at the Schwab. I still
Yeah.
get emails about it like, yo, dude, are you going to call the Schwab again
You
with
were,
Swag?
you were the MVP of those games.
Swag would lay out every 2 minutes. Swag would finally lay out, and I'd be like, man, they got to have better ball movement, Swag. They're not moving the rock very well. All right, Wes Lynn up. And I'd be like,
I still think I have the most famous Schwab broadcast of all time when I went and I had 3 comments in the first minute of the game and then realized I'm not really needed here. And then I turned my microphone up and I ate the media food.
during the game?
During the game. They had lasagna, dude. It was really good. I was like, dude, this guy's a machine. He does not need me to say, well, yeah, I gotta push the tempo a little bit. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
I mean, no disrespect to anybody doing it. I just think play-by-play radio basketball, the color guy not needed.
It's not needed.
Because the lead guy, he's got so many things to pay attention to and inform.
You got to paint the whole picture.
That's Swag. I think I could feel Swag uncomfortably laying out for 10 seconds, like
just to get you a
hurry
thought.
up, hurry up. Substitution. That being said, I am jacked for the start of the NBA Cup tonight.
Oh, God, would you shut up over there?
Memphis in Portland.
What's the most likely upset this weekend in college football? LSU over Alabama.
Good transition.
Kansas State over Texas.
Fade the Grizzlies, by the way. They're terrible.
Oklahoma State over Oklahoma.
No scoot for the Blazers.
Or USC over Washington.
That might be a good thing.
God, you guys are idiots. I can't do anything
Blazers
around
home
here.
dogs.
Brogdon,
Get 3.5.
Brogdon, Sharp. Ooh, a little Kamara. Jeremy Grant. DA. Watch out, Grizzlies. We got you. We got you right where we want you.
Back to back with the Grizzlies this weekend.
Oh, little Grizzly Cub's gonna get shot by a Blazer. Don't come on this trail. What was your question?
You guys done? Are you done?
What was your question?
Are you done now? Have you wrapped up your meaningless conversation?
What if Shaden drops 26 tonight? I mean, and has a dunk on somebody.
I would like to publicly apologize on behalf of the 2 people that I work with on a day in and day out basis. They don't know what they're doing to you right now, and I would like to apologize on their behalf. So,
guys are going to need COVID-type space with how erect they're going to be if Shaden's just dropping 33 on the Grizzlies tonight.
All right, let's just get to gambling.
3-foot window, 3-foot space. Sorry, excuse me.
Defense. Yes, this is an ass conversation. I'm sorry. How somehow this turned into a Bob Myers play-by-play NBA in-season tournament conversation. What the hell just happened?
That's called
It is a
victory.
football Friday.
Hell, it's the start of
Do
the
you
tournament.
care about our audience at all?
I think people care about this tournament.
I don't think they do.
Blazers win 3 in a row.
I didn't even know it started. I host a sports talk radio show, and I didn't even know it started tonight.
Did you think the Blazers would win 3 games in a row?
NBA, have you not been
No, he
just
hasn't.
overwhelmed by the
I mean, I've seen the
obnoxious
ads,
amount
but I'm
of
not paying
NBA
attention.
in-tournament?
Swag.
I'm not paying attention to the dates of when it starts. Why is it starting tonight?
Well, it's a
It's
build
the
up.
group. It's
Yeah,
the
it's the
group
group
play
stages.
game.
God,
Yeah.
this is
This
so
is how these tournaments work.
stupid.
Swag.
Now you've roped me into your dumb conversation, and I'm sharing actual thoughts on this.
Mavs Nuggets to
Swag,
end the night.
He had to have a friend who lives in Phoenix text him that Wemby was on national television.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, yeah, I'm not surprised he didn't know that this was happening.
Was that game even on national TV last night?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was on NBA TV.
NBA TV.
Oh, okay, it was.
Yeah.
I was just asking. I don't know.
Yeah, but you have a real serial killer. You have a Bob Myers in you. Sometimes you look at me like you're going to kill me.
No, but nobody cares.
Dude, people
Nobody
care.
Nobody
The
cares.
cup. Who's going to hoist the cup?
Nobody cares.
Hey, the coaches are getting bonuses now.
Yeah, buddy.
They're all in.
Yeah, buddy.
Let's just do some gambling.
Scotty Brooks, all in.
Oh, yeah.
You done?
Who's going to win it, though?
All right. We'll gamble next. Here's Swag. Shut up.
This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on the Fan, Ducks and Beavers both big favorites this weekend as the Pac-12 might whittle down the title contenders field a bit. Number 6 Oregon hosting Cal. That'll be a 2:30 kick from Autzen. You'll hear it right here on the Fan. Our live pregame coverage from Eugene will start at 10 a.m. Ducks 24.5-point favorites at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sportsbook. Meanwhile, 16th ranked Oregon State trying to bounce back from that loss in the desert. They're still on the road in Boulder to face Colorado. They are 13.5-point favorites over the Buffs, but it is a Pac-12 After Dark start at 7 o'clock on ESPN. Seahawks will have maybe their biggest test of the season Sunday morning in Baltimore, taking on the Ravens in a meeting of division leaders. 10 a.m. kick for you. Again here on the Fan pregame coverage at 8 o'clock. Ravens, 6-point favorites. The Blazers are back home tonight looking for a third straight win on the first day of the in-season NBA tournament games. They get the winless Memphis Grizzlies, 7 o'clock. Portland now 3.5-point home underdog. Scoot Henderson is out due to an ankle injury suffered in Detroit. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swigard from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Watch and wager on every game at Spirit Mountain Casino with a sportsbook powered by BetMGM. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
Your favorite fan shows are on YouTube. Mash the subscribe button and like us for live streaming video and 1080 The Fan on demand.
Sponsored by Batteries Plus Bulbs. At Batteries Plus, they want to know, what moves you? Is it an SUV, a motorcycle, a
Better buy Barbasol.
This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
on 1080 The Fan.
Sprague the line.
Sprague the line.
Sprague the line.
Sprague the line.
Sprague the line brought to you by the pointless in-season basketball tournament. Just like taking a Sprague pick, nobody cares when you talk about it.
Mariah Carey in-season basketball tournament is that time of year.
Sprague the line brought to you by the NBA in-season tournament, bringing some real competition to the 4:30 college football slate. Sprague the line brought to you by Jonathan Smith's fake field goal with 2 seconds on the clock. Still a better chance of converting than hitting a Sprague pick.
Whoa! Atticus Sappington from 25 out over my gambling pick. That hurt.
Sprague the line brought to you by Fade the Sprague. It's only week 9, and I've paid for my kids' college. You can too. Just be sure to fade the Sprague.
Actually, the last 3 weeks, you've lost your kids' college tuition with my record, but keep the jokes flying, because you're broke. You broke, boy!
Season standings are winning money, but I digress.
What have been the last 4 weeks? Huh? What's the record?
Sprague the line brought to you by Dirt's Hairline, the only thing receding faster than Sprague's bank account. That's right, I insulted both hosts in one text. Boom, triple word score.
I told my wife...
You needed an old joke there for Swigard, and you would have hit for the trifecta. If you hit all 3 of those, it would have been perfect.
I told my wife yesterday, you are the most vulnerable you've ever been in our show's history.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that, because most of the time I lay out and I put a lot of attention on my own problems.
Sure, I just like making fun of you.
And she said, well, what did he do? And I went, he kind of realized in real time where his hairline was.
Yeah.
She goes, yeah, I know.
Ouch.
And I go, you did? And she goes, yeah, it's been that way for a couple years. And I was like,
ouch.
Oh. Well, my takeaway was this is a good thing. Nobody's mentioned it. Everybody just rolls with life, man.
That's true. That's true.
Nobody cares.
Roll
it's
with
okay.
the punches. Sprague the line brought to you by OSU on the road. Hopefully they show up and not perform like a Sprague pick.
Yeah, no kidding. Show up, please.
And Sprague the line brought to you by Fetter's Recruiting Excuses. Even Sprague can try and make his bad bets look good with some excuses. So here's how we did last week, folks. Sprague, you and I both went 2-1.
Hello.
I hit on the Lions laying the wood Monday night against the Raiders and the Cowboys against the Rams. I missed on the 49ers and Bengals.
Yeah.
You hit on the Panthers plus a 3.5 against the Texans, and you hit on the Vikings minus 1.5 against Green Bay. And then you got a backdoor there against the Browns and Seahawks game. So 2-1 weekend. Swag, you went 1-2. You hit on Oregon minus the 6.5 against Utah. You missed on the Bears and Chargers over and the Seahawks and Browns under. So season standings now, I'm at 16-11. Sprague, you were at 12-15.
Hello.
And Swag is at 10-17.
I've left you in the dust.
You got a 2-game lead on him.
I was like 0-9 to start the year.
You had an 0-9 stretch. With your carryover 3-0 weekend, the
Thank
T-Box is still yours. Where did we go? Pick number 1.
That's good golf etiquette you just displayed there, Andrew, and
That's
I
right.
appreciate it.
Hey, we both got a par, but you birdied the hole before. That's how it works.
We are going to go to Houston, Texas, USA, where you've got the somewhat struggling offensively Houston Texans at home coming off of a loss to the winless Panthers, and they're favored. I'm falling into the trap here. Tristan Wirfs is coming back. He was a full participant in Bucs practice this week. I kind of like Tampa here, getting a good spot, 3-point road dog. I think they're the better team. I'm going to take the points. I'll take Tampa Bay plus the 3.
Okay, Tampa plus 3. I'm going to take the two of the bigger games in the NFL this weekend. I love the lines in the games. There's not a lot of other lines that speak to me.
Oh no, we might be in the same line.
Dude, whenever I get the chance to gamble against the Cowboys in a big game, I jump all over it. 49ers minus 3 on that Sunday night game a couple weeks ago was free money. Yeah. They're going on the road to Philly. Philly does not lose in Philadelphia. They're just a wagon at home. Their front seven is elite. I know their secondary has had some issues, but I think they're going to dominate Dallas up front. You give me only needing to win the game by 4. I'm all over it. My first pick of the week is Eagles minus 3 at home against Dallas.
Yeah.
I'm going to start in college football. Nobody plays the red ass better than Jim Harbaugh. They are going to take out all of their frustrations on
ass
Purdue.
Defense. Oh. I like the at the end.
Yeah, why is there an there?
I don't know. I thought I clipped that off. I'll go clean that up. Wolverines laying 32.5.
32.5. Is it in Ann Arbor?
Yes.
In Ann Arbor? Okay. 32.
They're going to win that game by 50 points. And if they don't, Connor Stallions is not there.
He's not there. They're not cheating anymore. All right, Sprague, pick number 2.
You know, it's always a bit of a dud when we end up having the same games to gamble on. I too am gonna jump on this. Eagles kind of looked at as a bit of a down spot because it's been a little hit and miss. I just prove it, Dallas. Go on the road with Dak Prescott and prove it. This might be a push number. It's certainly in line with it. I like the Eagles to get up for this one, and you've mentioned it all day. Dallas, beat a real team.
Yeah.
Beat a good, real team, and also do it on the road. I'm taking Eagles -3.
Okay. Pick number 2 for me. I'm going to go to the Sunday Night Football game. Hopefully we don't double up there too. But I faded this team last week, and I ended up looking like an idiot. I thought the 49ers were going to beat Cincinnati at home. I love that spot, laying less than a touchdown there. And they made me look stupid. Cincinnati was coming off a bye. I love the way they ran the football in that game. They forced some marquee turnovers in big moments, especially in the red zone. I think Burrow looked healthy. They called some design quarterback runs. I think this is that time of year. Ken Barkley's been ranting about this for weeks. Like, here comes Cincinnati. Don't overlook Cincinnati. We buried them early, just like we did last year, and they ended up in the AFC title game. I think this is another statement win for them on Sunday Night Football, laying less than a field goal. Less than a field goal?
Yep.
Buffalo's got some issues the last couple of weeks. I think Cincy's playing better. Give me Cincy -2.5 Sunday night against the Bills.
All right, I'll go to the NFL. Might be the worst game on the NFL slate, the Giants and Raiders. The Giants can't score against no defense. The Raiders can't score against a real defense.
You're gambling against Compton.
Under 37.
Okay.
Under 37.
That is such a low number, Swag.
It is a very low number.
Although the Titans-Steelers was 36.5, and it ended 2016.
Yes, it did.
So hopefully it's there for you. Who is that? Giants? You said
Giants and Raiders
right.
under of 37.
I almost picked the Raiders in the whole, it reminded me of Jeff Saturday type game.
Yeah, firing the coach.
They got basketball hoops in the locker room now. They're all happy in Vegas.
It's your Caleb Canales game, man. We all remember the Caleb Canales game.
But Kayvon's almost got double-digit sacks, and Daniel Jones is back this weekend, so I didn't know how to feel about that one. My final game, I'm taking a dog. I got 2 dogs and a favorite this week, and this is a pretty big one. And I'm excited for it because I checked the injury report, and it's basically an all-go here. I'm taking Seattle getting 6 at Baltimore. I think this is a good spot for them. I think it's going to be a difficult thing for that secondary of Baltimore to contain DK, who was sick last weekend. I know he's not practicing with the hip. They think he's going to play. Lockett, same thing. Wagner's a healthy rest. I like Seattle getting 6 points. And also, Baltimore's kind of riding this high highs. They're a weird team that sometimes they suddenly play a close game or they lose a game. You're going, what? I'm going to take Seattle +6 at Baltimore.
Okay, I like that, taking a dog there. Last one for me, I'm going to lay some wood again this weekend. It worked for me last week in the Detroit Raider game. I'm going to Cleveland. I think this is a decent team. They damn near upset Seattle in Seattle last weekend. They had a great chance to win that game.
They should have won that game outright. I'm still pissed.
Yeah, they outplayed them in the second half. There's no doubt about that after getting off to a sluggish start. They are at home this weekend against Arizona laying 8. And I think Arizona trading Dobbs. They're going on the road. I don't know. Kyler Murray might end up playing. That doesn't scare me at all.
It's going to be that rookie kid.
It's going to be that rookie kid. Yeah. Like, that's a good Cleveland defense. They're going to run the football on them. I think this is an Arizona team that's going to start getting pounded at this point in the season. I love the way Cleveland can play in that style, running the football and playing defense. I'll lay the 8. Give me the Browns -8.
I want to add quickly, I think the Browns are a very live and great pick for a teaser bet. If you want to get some points, cut down a spread, you take this to a teaser of 6, it's Browns -2.5 against a kid whose name I'm forgetting and an Arizona team that's terrible.
Exactly. Last pick, Swag.
I'm actually going opposite Sprague. I think that Lamar's going to cause all sorts of headaches for that Seahawks defense. They will use their aggressiveness in trying to get pressure on him to his advantage. If he can get one-on-one with Bobby Wagner at his speed, Bobby can't keep up with him anymore. Bobby has to use his skill, his understanding, all of his savvy to be able to cut things down. I will lay the 6 points. I think the Ravens get this one by a touchdown at least.
Okay. Here we go. Reminder of season standings and picks. I am 16-11. I am on the Eagles -3 against the Cowboys. Bengals -2.5 against the Bills, and I'm laying the wood. Browns -8 against Arizona. Sprague is 12-15. He is on the Bucks +3 against Houston. The Eagles -3 against Dallas, and the Seahawks +6 against the Ravens on the road. And then Swag, who is 10-17 on the year, is on Michigan -32.5 against Purdue. The Giants and Raiders under of 37, and the Ravens -6 against the Seahawks. There you go. Sprague in the line every Friday. Let me check real quick, see if we got any others. I think we had one in the Sprague in the line brought to you by Dirt's Hairline. Only a Sprague pick will reduce your wallet faster than Dirt's hairline is receding.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah, what do you got?
Do these jokes and making fun of yourself about the situation, it makes it a little easier, doesn't it?
You got to be able to poke fun at yourself.
I agree.
In every facet of life.
Yeah.
You have to be able to do that. Yeah. That's advice for all kids. If you ever get made fun of in school,
lean into it.
Make fun of yourself.
Because you start laughing, suddenly it's like not as funny anymore. Like, oh, he thinks this is funny. What can I make fun of him about?
It's only fun to make fun of people who push back against getting made fun of.
Yeah, always be Eminem. Just make fun of yourself first.
Exactly.
Papa Doc never had a response.
No, he didn't. There you go. Sprague in the line every Friday at 8:30. Let's answer the poll question. Send you off in your weekend next on The Fam.
Seahawks This is a Football Friday edition of Dirt and Sprague.
Brought to you by the Odyssey app.
On 1080 The Fan.
There you go. Fist pumping your way into the weekend every single Friday.
I did have a quick question.
Yeah, what do you got, Bob?
Don't need to linger on it long. Swag, do we know if that red Rip City court is going to be implemented tonight?
It should be.
Okay. That's, not a reason necessarily for everybody to want to watch,
plan.
but I know. Yeah, I know. Okay.
There was a lot of apologies in the text line to me saying they feel bad.
That you don't watch basketball? That's too bad. I feel bad for you, too. How do you not watch Wemby against KD?
College basketball season starts on Monday.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
now you need to stop.
Stop it.
You're going to take that a step too far. Step too far. What was the final score? 62-60.
We are entering, arguably, the best football weekend we have had all year.
Mm-hmm.
College football is loaded tomorrow. We got marquee NFL games starting at 6:30, at 10 a.m., at 1 o'clock. The Sunday night game is great. You actually are excited for Monday Night Football because you're a psycho.
Chargers Jets?
We have that this weekend.
I know.
And you two idiots.
There's so
want
much
to talk about a red court and something that nobody cares about.
Stop with the nobody
cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
They will generate.
Not even the NBA players care about this.
Well, we'll have to wait and see on that.
How many of them are going to load manage their way through the in-season? No, what? No. Now we're doing it again. Stop it. P1 Cole said I was Cole the Mole in elementary school, and I hated it. Then I leaned into it, and I wasn't called that anymore.
Cole the Mole.
Cole the Mole is a good one.
Way to lean into it,
You got to lean into it, dude.
Yeah.
You got to get people off your scent.
Yeah, you
will
do.
Oregon and Oregon State play again next season, against each other next season? 90% of you say no. Most likely upset in college football: LSU over Bama, Kansas State over Texas, Oklahoma State over Oklahoma, or USC over Washington. 45% of you say USC over Washington. Is that your guys' vote?
I wonder what school or fans those are voting on.
It's all those beaver honks, man. They're all over the place.
If I was to honestly pick one, I'd want to lean Texas because I don't know what you can trust from the backup quarterback.
He was not good last week.
No, he was not, and it wasn't Arch Manning, and also Bedlam. I mean, Bedlam is nuts.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Any early concern about Arch Manning not being ready at Texas? Are they panicking down there in Austin?
No, I actually went and read the message boards. Most of them are cool with it because he came from a lesser division of high school.
Oh, okay.
So they're really not sure how ready for college football he is. Also, ask Dante Moore what it's like to play as a true freshman.
Yeah, it's not easy. Best bet of the weekend: Colorado plus 13.5, Oregon State minus 13.5, USC plus 3, Washington minus 3. 36% of you answered Oregon State minus 13.5, and that was my answer as well.
All right. I'll go Washington minus 3.
Okay. It's going to be a fun weekend, boys. Enjoy your in-season tournament tonight.
You're not going to watch any of it?
We'll see. The wife's getting off.
All right.
I'm going to probably take the night off of sports. A lot of World Series, a lot of football this weekend. This is going to be one of those, like, she's going to want to watch Goosebumps, and we're going to probably watch that.
Oh, sports that don't care, and you're talking about how much baseball you consumed. Okay.
I mean, it's the World Series.
Least
9 million people watched it.
LSU, Iowa got more in the
How many people are going to watch
basketball.
the in-season tournament tonight?
We got to go, dude. You got to wrap it up.
47? What are you going to get?
Wrap it up.
Anybody
see?
in the arena even going to watch? Is that all that counts? 18,000? Can't wait to see that half-full Moda tonight.
Wake up with me at 6:15 on Sunday.
All right, we got to go. Hey, by the way, right now, if you text in RV to 503-864-6326, you can win a 4-pack of tickets to the 65th Annual Portland RV Dealers Show, which is coming up November 9th through the 12th at the Expo Center. You can find more details at 1080thefan.com. RV to the fan text line. Boom goes the dynamite. We'll talk to you on Monday, everybody. Have a great weekend. Calling us next. Listen to 1080 The Fan.